The Hogwarts professor mixed into Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 526. The Third Dark Lord appears. England, the Hogshead pub. Bang, bang. The bar at night is always so noisy, and the sound of glasses hitting each other seems to indicate the depth of friendship between the two parties. On the counter, Aberforth wiped the wine glass as usual, while listening to the movement in the bar. Under the influence of alcohol, many people are used to exaggerating information, but at the same time, some people will choose to leak some unknown information. Whenever Aberforth heard interesting or valuable information, he would pause slightly when wiping the wine glass. But today, while wiping the wine glass, he would occasionally sweep the jade-like rectangular block on the counter. This rectangular block is crystal clear, with a light green color throughout, and you can vaguely see a golden dragon swimming back and forth inside. This golden dragon keeps swimming along a strange trajectory. If you connect the trajectories, you will find that it is the words Wizard Tenpei. And at the top of the jade rectangular block, there is a clearly visible colorful long mark. The color of this long mark seems to change constantly with the passage of time. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and purple, constantly changing, like a rainbow. At first glance, it is very beautiful, like an exquisite work of art. This work of art, no, it should be said to be a magical item, is given to the Hogshead in for free, and its function is, boss, check out. 6 sickles, 10 nuts. The boss Aberforth glanced at it and saw 3 bottles of butterbeer and other things, and said lightly. Then, the wizard took a black card and gently brushed it on the colorful scratches on the jade. Ding. A subtle jingle sounded. At the same time, the numbers 6 and 10 appeared on the surface of the jade, and there were also sickle and nut logos behind it. It seemed to indicate that the other party had paid 6 sickles and 10 nuts. That's right, its function is transaction payment. This rectangular block that looks like jade is named Wizard Tenpei. Kamar-Taj gave it to various shops such as the Hogshead Inn for free, so that every wizard can make the most convenient transaction payment. No need to prepare sickle or nut, and no need to worry about forgetting to bring money or not being able to find change. As long as you have a black wizard wealth card in your hand, you can transfer money with a light swipe. Simple, convenient, and deeply loved by today's wizards. As the wizard swiped the card to pay and left, Aberforth once again focused his attention on the rectangular block called Wizard Tenpei. His expression was very complicated. This thing is really easy to use, and even the bar's business has become better because of it. It's not because there are many customers, but because the amount of consumption of each wizard has increased unconsciously. I have to say that Lockhart's invention of this thing is really terrifying. Yes, it's terrifying. He is not an ordinary bar owner, he is Dumbledore's younger brother and a member of the Order of the Phoenix. He once participated in World War I and dueled with Grindelwald. Although he ended in failure, his fighting level is still at the forefront of the entire wizard world, and he has also made a great statement among the dark wizards. Standing at his level, he can naturally see through the horror of Kamar-Taj or Lockhart creating such a thing. The gold galleons that were visible to the naked eye have now transformed into a virtual existence. Originally, there were at least restrictions on raw materials, but now it is just a piece of data. You can imagine how deep the water is. The most terrifying thing is that the entire wizarding world has accepted it all in a short time. This is simply incredible. In Aberforth's cognition, any new thing, no matter how beneficial it is, it always takes some time for him to accept it. And now, in a month, no, just half a month, the entire wizarding world has fully accepted it. This is equivalent to changing the world in just 2 weeks, which is simply incredible. In the wizarding world, the reason for this incredible thing can be explained. That is, magic. Magic itself is an incredible product. It is difficult for Aberforth not to associate such a thing beyond ordinary people's cognition with magic. What makes Aberforth even more difficult to accept is that he once tried to find traces of magic. But it seems that everything was born naturally. Is he old? Or has his strength declined? Or is the fortune card really so popular? When Aberforth was thinking, suddenly, goo, coo, coo, an owl flew over with its wings flapping. It held an envelope under its feet and placed it on the table. It raised its head and cooed at Aberforth, as if asking for food. Aberforth glanced at the mark on the envelope and his face changed slightly. However, he still had patience and grabbed a handful of the owl's favorite food from under the counter and placed it aside. Let the owl eat it. And he just took the envelope and quickly flipped through it. 2 Dark Lords joined forces. Durmstrang fell. All the Saints and Vice Principal Rosier were arrested. Grindelwald led the Saints to fight back. 2 Dark Lords split. Civil War. Aberforth was stunned by the large amount of text in the envelope. He never thought that Voldemort and his men would leave Britain and run to Europe. What's more incredible is that they even robbed Grindelwald's lair. Is this going to fight Grindelwald to the death? At this moment, Aberforth deeply suspected that Voldemort's brain was destroyed by studying the dark magic. Otherwise, there was really no reason to find such a big enemy for himself. Then when he saw the Dark Lord's civil war, he felt that the 2 Voldemorts were completely hopeless. But Voldemort said that Lockhart was the mastermind behind the resurrection of the Dark Lord, and Lockhart designed the huge changes in Gringotts. He is the biggest behind-the-scenes manipulator hidden in the British wizard world. One of the Dark Lords is his resurrected puppet. He created Kamar-Taj and used all the little wizards as experimental subjects. He is trying to control the entire wizard world. When these words appeared on the envelope, Aberforth couldn't help but put his eyes on the jade rectangle beside him. The words on the wizard's 10-pay inside have never been so eye-catching at this moment. For some reason, the news that should have felt a little incredible or even absurd, Aberforth inexplicably felt that this was true. Boss, check out. The voice of the wizard coming forward to check out came again. Aberforth was stunned for a moment, and then he seemed to come back to his senses. He took a look at the alcohol the other party had purchased. He subconsciously said, 13 sickles. After seeing the wizard take out the Black Wealth card, Aberforth hesitated for a moment and stopped him, saying, "Hello, can you pay with sickles?" After hearing this, the wizard looked at the card reader in front of him, and looked at the bar owner opposite with strange eyes. "I don't have any cash on me, can't you pay with a card here? And are you sure how many wizards carry cash with them now?" After hearing what the wizard said, Aberforth subconsciously touched his Wizard Wealth card on his waist. For some reason, he suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Then, Aberforth smiled reluctantly at the wizard in front of him, pushed the card in front of him forward, and indicated that the other party could pay by card. After the wizard swiped the card to transfer the money, he turned around and left without thinking much. When the wizard left, Aberforth looked at the card reader on the counter and couldn't help but take a step back, as if he saw a tiger. The next moment, the magic wand was waved, and the quill and parchment suddenly flew out. With the sound of rustling, large pieces of text were quickly written down. Soon, the parchment filled with large pieces of text was sealed by Aberforth's spell. Without waiting for the owl next to him, he immediately stuffed the envelope under its feet, after eating the food, urging the other party to leave quickly. The owl complained a few times, but did not disobey the order of its master, and flew away with the envelope. The direction he flew was the direction of the Magical Congress of America, to be precise Dumbledore's location. He wanted to tell his brother that the British wizarding world might have the greatest threat in history, and it might also be the third generation of the Dark Lord. He is Gilderoy Lockhart. Chapter 527 Dumbledore, why did you leave England and come to America? Albus, your student Lockhart is really not simple. It seems that, when you get old, your eyes are easy to go blind. In a cafe in New York, Grindelwald said to the old man in front of him in a sarcastic voice. The whole cafe is very exquisitely decorated, with soothing music, and business should be good. But it is empty here, with only 2 people sitting in the most central seat. At this moment, Dumbledore, wearing a dark blue wizard robe like the starry sky, has a ruddy face and bright eyes. Facing the sarcasm of his old friend Grindelwald, he didn't say anything, but just took a sip of coffee from the coffee cup on the table. It seems that he can't stand the bitterness of coffee, and his brows are slightly frowned. With a wave of his hand, a small handful of white sugar appeared in his hand, and then scattered gently. Watching the white sugar melt into the bitter coffee, Grindelwald watched everything quietly, without interrupting, just picked up the coffee in front of him, took a sip, and enjoyed the bitterness of the coffee. Soon, waiting for the sugar to completely melt in the coffee, Dumbledore picked up the coffee cup again. He took a sip again, and this time, he felt the familiar sweetness of the coffee, and his slightly frowned brows relaxed. Gentler. Sometimes I think, if coffee can be sweet, how good it would be, and there would be no need to add sugar. Dumbledore did not directly answer Grindelwald's question, but said meaningfully. Grindelwald took another sip of coffee and said coldly, I still like bitter. He can make me realize clearly at this point. Grindelwald paused, stared into Dumbledore's eyes, and said word by word, what is reality? What is the truth? What is the enemy? Hearing this, Dumbledore's brows, which had been relaxed by the rich sweet taste, frowned again. Then, he sighed deeply. Alas, I actually know about Lockhart's affairs. Dumbledore sighed and gently said something that shocked Grindelwald's heart. However, his expression remained calm, and he took another sip of coffee. He simply asked with some curiosity, when did you find out? Dumbledore pondered for a moment, as if he was thinking, or reminiscing. In fact, when Lockhart introduced the meditation method to everyone on the Hogwarts court, the slogan he shouted actually revealed a clue. What slogan? Grindelwald asked in a cooperative manner. Dumbledore looked deeply into Grindelwald's sapphire eyes. His tone was gentle, but mixed with nostalgia. Make wizards great again. This short sentence made Grindelwald silent. He knew this sentence at the time, but he didn't take it to heart. This was too empty, and too fake. Later, the other party rarely mentioned this slogan, and he didn't think about it again. But thinking back carefully, Lockhart introduced the meditation method, established Kamar-Taj, and now came up with the so-called wizard fortune card. It seems that this slogan has really become a reality. Later, Tom's vault in Gringotts was robbed. To be precise, Hufflepuff's gold cup was stolen. I didn't know who it was at the time, but now it seems that it should be related to Lockhart. Grindelwald heard this, although he didn't know what Dumbledore was saying, but he still listened patiently. Regarding the meditation method, I have looked for relevant information in the Heritage Library of Hogwarts, but basically found nothing. Actually, I'm also quite curious. Even if it is a new and strange thing, he should have traces of the past. I asked Lockhart, but he didn't give me a convincing explanation. But I don't care. Listening to Dumbledore not getting to the point, Grindelwald's brows began to frown slightly. As if sensing Grindelwald's state, Dumbledore smiled and didn't say anything, but asked directly, do you know why I don't care? Why doesn't Dumbledore care? Why? The simple question went around in Grindelwald's mind. The answer seemed to come out at the same time. Grindelwald said in a somewhat stiff tone, Albus, because Lockhart has not affected your interests. Yes, it did not touch Dumbledore's interests. Shouting the slogan for the greater good. Grindelwald was naturally not naive enough to believe in the so-called justice and evil. Although he had never heard of the saying the world is bustling, all for profit, the world is bustling, all for profit. But he understood the interests very deeply. That's right, Lockhart's existence has made him lose his base camp drumstring. It can be said that his fundamental interests have been touched. Therefore, there was this meeting. Voldemort was even more so. Even his self, the original body, began to fall. As for Lockhart, Dumbledore said, benefits. Dumbledore pondered for a moment, as if he was tasting the word, smiled, nodded in agreement, and said, you are right to say so. He, Lockhart, did not target Hogwarts or the Ministry of Magic. He did not kill innocent people indiscriminately like Tom. Threatened and intimidated civilian wizards, and created panic. In the end, he did not disrupt the order of the entire wizarding world, but tried his best to maintain it. With what he is doing now, it is full of benefits for wizards. Why should I stop him? In response to Dumbledore's question, Grindelwald looked at his old friend who showed a gentle smile, as if enjoying the sweet aroma of coffee. Although he already had the answer in his heart, he still wanted to return to the previous topic. Albus, can you tell me now what exactly made you leave Hogwarts, leave Britain, and come to America? Hearing some of the previous words, Grindelwald now knew. It is probably not as simple as the goblin thing that made Dumbledore leave Hogwarts, leave Britain, and come to America. Even Lockhart and Dumbledore have already started to join forces. Dumbledore is responsible for restraining him, just like the mutual restraint between the young Voldemort and the adult Voldemort. You can't blame him for thinking so. It's really that the current situation is too much like a well-designed one. In America, the two of them, plus the Goblin King Tyrion, have formed a stable opposition. The two Voldemorts in Europe also formed a situation of mutual confrontation and restraint. Now in the entire British world, there is only Lockhart. It seems to be specially left for Lockhart to sort out. It really looks too much like a well-designed one. After knowing this information, anyone always feels that Dumbledore and Lockhart have joined forces. Otherwise, why did Dumbledore leave his base camp for no reason and come to America thousands of miles away? At this moment, Grindelwald became alert. His right hand drooped on the table, and he began to exert force unconsciously. It seemed that he was ready, and Dumbledore seemed to know what Grindelwald was thinking. Without any precautions, he picked up the coffee on the table again, and took a deep sip of the rich sweet aroma of the coffee. He put it down again, and said with a gentle smile, "Don't worry, Jetler, I didn't team up with Lockhart. My leaving Hogwarts is related to a person. No, to be precise, it's a portrait, or a ghost. You should have heard of him, the founder of Slytherin House, Salazar Slytherin." Chapter 528 Dumbledore, do you want to resurrect your sister? 3 months ago, Hogwarts, the principal's office. At this time, Lockhart had just left Hogwarts, and Kamar-Taj had not yet been established. The little wizards went back to their families on vacation. In the entire Hogwarts, except for some house elves, there were only Dumbledore and Hagrid. The other professors, including the deputy principal McGonagall, took advantage of the holidays to return to their homes or go out for travel. Dumbledore had long regarded the school as his home and basically lived in the school during the holidays every year. He had not returned to his own home for a long time. It was not that he did not want to go home, but every time he went home, he would think of some sad things. Hagrid was even more so. His original home had long disappeared, and Hogwarts was his only home. He had long been accustomed to taking care of those little cuties and those magical creatures in the wooden house next to the Forbidden Forest. Every holiday, Hogwarts would seem quiet, and Dumbledore also habitually stayed in the principal's office. As for other chores, hygiene was naturally handed over to the house elves. Of course, occasionally McGonagall or other professors would stay in Hogwarts for a few more days. Inside the headmaster's office at this moment, Dumbledore sat at the table, opened a book with a dark blue cover, and studied it carefully. This was the research experience related to meditation given by Lockhart. As the future of the wizarding world, Dumbledore would naturally conduct research. During his research, the images of the past headmasters hanging on the wall of the headmaster's office began to move slowly. As if something magical was attracting them, they walked out of their photo frames and walked towards the outside of the headmaster's office. The whole process seemed to be silent, and everyone left quietly and consciously. This scene was really a bit weird. It is normal for people in the magic portraits to move without sound, but they can make their own voices as long as they want. It can be said that, if any of their portraits wants to speak, Dumbledore will find the abnormality at this moment. But now, it is a bit strangely quiet. Even Headmaster Black, who usually curses with Dumbledore, is unusually quiet. Soon, every headmaster in the magic portrait left quietly, leaving only a blank page or a simple landscape painting. At this time, Dumbledore still focused on the research notes in front of him. Then a wizard figure quietly emerged in the blank magic portrait. He had a gloomy face, was tall and thin, had a brown wooden wand on his waist, and a few black basilisks were outlined on his dark green wizard robe. On his chest, there was a medal printed with Slytherin College. It seemed to indicate that his identity was related to Slytherin. In fact, he was the founder of Hogwarts and the founder of Slytherin College, Salazar Slytherin. The scene just now was him using his remaining authority to influence the actions of the magic images. After all, the people are dead, just some magical avatars. Albus Dumbledore. A peaceful voice came from behind. Dumbledore's body stiffened slightly, but then relaxed. He closed the meditation research experience in front of him, turned slowly, and stared at the magic image opposite. Salazar Slytherin? Dumbledore said the name hesitantly. As the headmaster of Hogwarts, how could he not know the image of the founder of the school? Yes, it's me. Salazar Slytherin nodded and said, "This time I came to see you specifically. I have a question I have always wanted to ask you. Many people praise you as the greatest white wizard in the world. I don't know, what is Dumbledore's standard for judging black magic and white magic?" Salazar did not greet, nor did he exchange pleasantries, nor did he explain why he was here. Instead, he threw a question to Dumbledore. After hearing this, Dumbledore did not ask Slytherin why he was here, but began to think about this question. It seems that he trusts Salazar Slytherin's true identity very much, or is generally sure of it. Soon, he began to speak out his answer. When magic can arouse people's evil thoughts, it is enough to be included in the category of black magic. And when magic arouses people's good thoughts, or at least it can prevent the emergence of evil thoughts, then at least it can be called white magic. Regarding Dumbledore's judgment criteria of evil thoughts and good thoughts, Slytherin did not affirm, but also did not deny. In other words, everyone may have different opinions on the answer to this question. He just wanted to listen to Dumbledore's point of view, and then judge his values and sense of right and wrong. "Dumbledore, Helga may like your answer more," Slytherin said slowly. "I'm also very happy to be recognized by Ms. Hufflepuff." Dumbledore seemed to accept this statement with joy. Then, Dumbledore began to get to the point. "Mr. Slytherin, I wonder where the portraits of other headmasters are? What do you want to see me for?" And Slytherin waved his hand, then jumped. A transparent phantom quietly appeared, floating towards Dumbledore, like a ghost. This filled Dumbledore with surprise. For thousands of years, portraits are portraits, and ghosts are ghosts, and the two are completely different. It has to be said that the state of the characteristics of the times has somewhat broken his cognition. But for some reason, Dumbledore was only slightly surprised by this once most powerful dark wizard in the world. At this moment, Slytherin once again felt a flow of magic and the flow of air. A trace of satisfaction emerged in his heart. However, he still came back to his senses, and said in a deep voice, "First of all, I have learned some information about you through some channels. Dumbledore, I have to say that you are a good principal. However, there is one thing I think needs to be clarified. This Hogwarts was originally provided by me to Gryffindor, Ravenclaw and others." After hearing this, Dumbledore nodded without any surprise, to show that he understood. And Slytherin continued, "Of course, this matter is not important now. I see that you have basically mastered all the headmaster's authority, and you have also entered the Heritage Library. You did a good job on this point." Dumbledore smiled and nodded at Slytherin's reminder and praise, and did not say much. He listened, as if waiting for Slytherin to say the answer he wanted to hear. "Dumbledore, I was entrusted by a wizard to make a deal with you. It will not violate your principles, and will not cause bad effects. You only need to do one thing at the right time." Then the other party said that he can give you a chance to resurrect your sister Ariana. Chapter 529 on the best winner of the World Peace Prize. Does the world have dreams? It can have or not. However, in the eyes of Lockhart, who controls the dream dimension, the world's dreams are real, visible to the naked eye and touchable. Its dreams are the dreams of all creatures in the world. There are ordinary people, wizards, magical animals, and some very weak plants. Anything in the world, as long as it has consciousness, even if it is only slightly conscious, its desires, its thoughts, and its ideas are the source of shaping the dream of the world. Rather than saying it is the dream of the world, it is better to say that it is the subconscious ocean of all life in the world. All good thoughts, evil thoughts, various desires, ideas, and obsessions are all gathered here, providing a source of vitality for the entire world. While affecting the development of the world, it is also affected by the development of the world. At this moment, in the colorful dream world, that seems to be changing all the time, a deep purple ship is sailing steadily into this magnificent dream ocean. The color of the ocean is very complex, and each color is full of strong energy fluctuations and various emotions. The fiery red flame, the sad light green, the noble purple gold, and even the desperate dark color are all mixed together. Although mixed, The main color at this moment can be roughly identified as a dark red. At least the dark red is more common and more conspicuous. This space is difficult to describe accurately with words. Sometimes it is like the ocean, and from time to time there are some flying fish with wings and huge sea beasts emerging from it, and then disappearing. Sometimes it is like land, and plants like giants rise and fall one after another, and tigers with wings, lions with 9 heads, and other strange beasts leap back and forth on the plants to hunt. Here, it is changing all the time. It seems that time passes very slowly, but also very quickly. The colorful land, that may be very solidified, immediately becomes as turbulent as the sea in the blink of an eye. Originally just a small grass the size of a finger on the land, it instantly turned into a huge tree that stood tall, and then stretched out countless branches like a hunter to hunt nearby animals, swallow, digest, and grow further. But the originally powerful behemoth may suddenly turn from a behemoth into a small flying insect, from a hunter to a prey, and fly away, as if escaping for life. It seems that here, everything is changing. The only thing that remains unchanged is change itself. The originally dark purple ship changes with this ever-changing world. Sometimes it changes into a ship, sometimes into a moving flying castle, sometimes into a moving spaceship, and sometimes into a flying giant balloon. Sometimes it even changes into a giant, walking on the ground. It seems that it has no goal, sometimes going east, sometimes west, sometimes up, and sometimes landing on the ground. It seems to be to fully adapt to this ever-changing environment and fully integrate into it. Despite this, in the colorful and mixed world Dream, the purple giant ship is still so conspicuous. However, the Dream ship does not seem to give up. He is trying to change his own color, from dark purple to dark red, to blend into the current main color. However, it seems that the size is too large, or the resources required to adapt to such a magnificent world Dream are too complicated. The speed was very slow, but it continued. Slowly, the dark purple Dream ship turned into dark red. However, the color had just changed successfully. The next moment, the world Dream changed again. The world Dream that was originally like an ocean suddenly solidified gradually, and then, mountains suddenly rose. There was no sound, as if everything was unfolding in silence, or everything before was an illusion. In the blink of an eye, colorful mountains were everywhere, and a large number of strange plants and animals appeared on the mountains. The mountain version of the Dream world was formed. Now, its color is mainly green. At this moment, the giant ship that had just turned into dark red looked more conspicuous. However, he seemed to have adapted to the complex situation of the world Dream. Gradually, the dark red giant ship turned into a giant. The giant was very tall, like a 100-story skyscraper, but in the Dream world with towering mountains, he still looked like a dwarf. The dark red skin also began to slowly transform. This time the color was dark green. This time, the transformation speed was much faster than before, either because the world Dream was relatively stable, or because he had encountered similar scenes before, and had similar experiences. As time passed, a giant with dark green skin appeared on the mountains. This time, it looked unusually coordinated from a distance, and the world Dream did not change suddenly, which made the giant very excited. Such opportunities have been encountered before, although rarely, but every time it appears, it is a huge harvest. The dark green giant opened his giant claws and grabbed the plants and animals on the mountain. He did not move the mountain directly, as if he knew that moving these mountains would cause a lot of trouble. He just cleaned up the plants or animals on them. His hands danced wildly, as if he caught a large number of dream plants mixed with animals like catching grass. Every time the palm slowly closed and opened again, the plant originally held in the hand had disappeared, as if a huge mouth appeared in the palm, swallowing everything that had just been caught. Then, looking at the dream, the world still did not change, and the dark green giant seemed to cherish the opportunity in front of him. He waved his arms and tried to catch as many plant creatures as possible. But not long after, as if sensing the giant's movements, the dream world with towering mountains changed again. The originally colorful mountains turned into phantoms like bubbles. The earth also became empty. In a flash, colorful clouds slowly floated in the sky. Some clouds had some strange plants growing on them, and some were extremely large, with animals running on them. From time to time, a group of flying birds, or winged beasts would shuttle back and forth in the clouds. The colors were still mixed and continued to change. And this time the main color was white. The sky cloud version of the dream world. If you don't look closely at these strange animals and plants, the dream world at this moment is as peaceful as a children's world. In comparison, the dark green giant is unusually eye-catching in this cloud. It's like a dark green scar that suddenly grew on a white and delicate face. So mismatched, so ugly. So much so that the dream of the world seems to have discovered its existence. As if it had discovered a thief who had stolen the property at home. The world dream suddenly became angry. In the sky, a large number of ferocious beasts suddenly appeared, flapping their wings and quickly swooping down on the dark green giant. Even the originally colorful and peaceful clouds began to sprout spikes all over their bodies. They rushed directly towards the dark green giant. There was still no sound, but the beasts approached, waving their sharp claws, opening their bloody mouths, and pounced on the giant. The clouds with spikes all over their bodies exploded directly after approaching. They tried to use their bodies to destroy the infiltrating thieves. Seeing this, the giants also began to run and hide quickly. When encountering the attacking monsters, they also waved their arms to push or kick away the obstacles blocking the way. He did not intend to resist, because resistance in the dream world would have no effect. Even if more were eliminated, more would only emerge the next moment, and it would not hurt the root, and it was meaningless. At the same time, his body began to become transparent, and began to become more and more illusory. The entire dream world seemed to know that the thieves were about to escape successfully, and became more and more angry. The clouds in the sky suddenly turned black and grey, and dark red raindrops filled with murderous breath began to fall. This time, the originally silent dream world seemed to have been untied, and the sound of dripping raindrops began to appear, and the corrosive sound of dripping on the giant. In response, the giant just covered himself and then accelerated away, not caring about the injuries on his body. It was as if he had just stolen a lot of property and fled madly after being discovered by the owner. The giant's body became more and more transparent, and the dream world became more and more angry. A large number of black lightnings appeared and struck the giant. However, it seemed to reach a certain point. The giant's body was like a phantom, and the black lightning, dark red raindrops, and the beast's bite seemed to no longer be able to cause harm to it. Soon, puff. With a subtle puff, the giant's figure disappeared completely. The dark clouds and thunder in the dream world also began to slowly stop, and the plants and beasts that were originally in a frenzy gradually calmed down. As if knowing that the abnormality had been expelled, everything in the dream world began to gradually change to the initial peace. Gradually transformed into a deep blue ocean, lush land, and a starry sky. Animals and plants change with each other, sometimes hunters and sometimes prey. Constantly changing, as if this place contains all the justice, evil, beauty, and ugliness of the world. Kamar-Taj secret space. Above the sky, on the line formed by the gathering and solidification of white clouds, a towering and magnificent palace stands. At the main entrance, there is a golden plaque. On the plaque, the words Yunding Xiangang are written like a dragon. In the center of the entire palace, there is a hall. Although the door is closed, you can still clearly see the colorful light flashing through the crack of the door. The plaque of this hall also presents colorful colors. It is written above Dream Hall. At this moment, in the Dream Hall, Lockhart sat cross-legged in the center of the hall and slowly opened his eyes. The moment he opened his eyes, the colorful light flashed, as if it was the legacy of the power of dreams. But soon, they returned to their original sapphire eyes. Xiao, what happened in the Muggle world again? Lockhart's calm tone was mixed with a hint of silence. The dream of the world is closely related to all living beings. It is formed by all the consciousness, thoughts, and emotions of the living beings in the world. Therefore, when all living beings change, the dream world will also change unpredictably. According to Lockhart's research and textual research, compared with the world of wizards and animals, the minds of muggles are the most changeable, and there are many of them. Whenever the dream of the world changes greatly, it is basically because of the stimulation of the muggle world. Many times it is because of a war, or some radical public opinion orientation. As a result, the dream world has also become sensitive, suspicious, and radical. He has been expelled like this several times. One of the most bizarre things was the transgender public opinion in the UK. What men are not men, women are not women, and when you think you are a woman, then you are a woman. Because of such things, he was expelled, which made Lockhart speechlessly want to cast the forgetting spell and the confusion spell on everyone in the UK. Although the words were a bit ironic. But for Lockhart, world peace is the most important thing. He, Gilderoy Lockhart, is currently the guardian of world order. Because only a stable order can stabilize the world's dream. Although it will still change, it will not be so suspicious and repulsive. Only in this way can Lockhart obtain more world dream origins and expand his dream dimension. Therefore, after Lockhart returned this time, except for the opening ceremony of Kamar-Taj, he basically did not appear. He is reducing his interference. Let the entire wizard world tend to be stable. Even Lockhart has sent Kamar-Taj wizards to cast spells on the heads of various governments in the Muggle world to have a certain influence. Let them reduce wars and reduce chaos. Everything is for world peace. Everything is for stability. To put it bluntly, he is the best winner of the Nobel World Peace Prize. Only in this way can he steal the origin of the world's dream more stably. After hearing the question asked by Lockhart, the dream spirit Xiao. In an instant, it appeared in front of Lockhart and a soft voice sounded, "Great dream creator, after testing, the changes in the world dream are most likely unrelated to the Muggle world. Although the thoughts of various Muggle countries have changed, there have been no drastic changes, which are not enough to cause such drastic changes. On the contrary, you need to pay attention to the changes in the wizard world. This change in the dream world is likely caused by the current chaotic situation." Hearing this, Lockhart nodded gently and signaled the dream spirit Xiao to continue. Through deduction, because you have plundered the origin of the world dream many times before, with a high frequency, and the amount of plunder is getting bigger and bigger each time, it is highly likely that you have been focused on by the world consciousness and are trying to erase your existence. Reflected in the real world, under the impetus of the world consciousness, the Dark Lord Voldemort has deviated from the previous plan and is full of malice towards you. Grindelwald seems to have begun to prepare to join forces with Dumbledore to target Kamar-Taj. The British Ministry of Magic seems to have made some changes as well. Hearing the news that the dream spirit told him one by one that was unfavorable to himself and Kamar-Taj, Lockhart rubbed his brows in distress. Sure enough, good things take time to come. No storm, no rainbow. After all, you have already attacked the world, so aren't you ready for it to strike back? Chapter 530, Voldemort, Conquering the French Wizarding World. Avada Kedavra. Kill. Crucio. Put down your wands. Surrender. The Great Dark Lord will spare your life. Hold the castle. The Ministry of Magic will support us soon. Boke's buttons will never be conquered. Avada Kedavra. Tear into pieces. The magic castle, which was originally bright, clean and tidy, is now in chaos, with ruins everywhere. Struggles, cheers, pain, and wails can be heard throughout the castle. Dark green and dark red killing curses, and killing curses can be seen everywhere almost all the time. Blood flows on the ground, and corpses are scattered around like garbage. It seems that this is the end of the world. The sky above, which was originally filled with purple and gold defense shields, is now in tatters. The black death fog in the sky continues to corrode the defense system of this magic castle. The black water drops that fell from time to time just touched the ground, and soon, the nearby animals and plants immediately turned yellow, as if they had suffered great damage. There were even potholes on the ground, and from time to time, wisps of black mist could be seen emerging, continuing to expand the area of erosion. It seemed to show the power of the death mist. This is the French Boke's Baton School of Magic, where young wizards are trained. It is known as the safest place except for the French Ministry of Magic. However, now, it seems that this magic school, that has been passed down for thousands of years, is about to fall. Outside the castle, the originally green lawn has turned into a withered yellow, mixed with a lot of dark red blood. From time to time, dark wizards and Death Eaters can be seen passing by. They hurriedly waved their wands to speed themselves up, and rushed towards the inside of the academy. Their eyes were filled with indifference to the tragic scenes caused by themselves and their companions along the way, and many were even filled with excitement and joy. Even if they met the corpse of the little wizard, they did not have the slightest regret, and some even stopped to appreciate this brutal death scene. The high and mighty Bogsburton's Academy was almost breached by them. The teachers they looked up to were now trampled under their feet and even begged for their forgiveness. The stimulation they felt was really hard to describe in words. Excitement and joy were not enough to describe their current state. The freshly shed blood smelled good and always felt so sweet. The pleasure of killing kept stimulating their nerves. They were eager to kill and looked forward to killing. So, they rushed to the castle deep in the academy. There was still the last resistance of Bogsburtons. As long as the last part of the force was destroyed, they would completely occupy this magic castle that had been passed down for thousands of years. Rumble, crackling, shattered to pieces, darkness corroded, shadow impact. In front of the tall castle, a khaki defense barrier shone. A large number of dark wizards and Death Eaters stood outside the barrier, excitedly waving spells and releasing their best offensive spells. Seeing a large number of spells with strong fluctuations and different colors rushing towards the barrier and stirring up waves, many wizards cheered excitedly, especially when they saw visible cracks in the defense barrier. Even if they quickly closed them, they were stimulated to speed up the speed of releasing spells. This is the last battlefield of Bogsburtons. The castle covered by the khaki defense barrier is the last place for the young wizards and professors of Bogsburton's Academy to survive. Once it is broken, it will be like the outside, with death and killing everywhere, blood and bones. There is no pity for women here, and no respect for the elderly, and love for the young. No matter how beautiful, the black wizards will not be soft. Even if the little wizards are in their early teens, just in the first grade, and can't even cast the most basic levitation spell, they will not let them go. At this moment, looking down at the ancient building of Bogsburtons from a high altitude, you will find that with Bogsburtons as the center, a large number of dark red thick lines appear on the ground. These lines are intertwined, flowing and wriggling like blood. Even closer, and then clearly observe the breathing movements of these lines. It seems that at this moment, the whole earth has life, and these lines are the blood vessels of the earth. I don't know since when, the surroundings of Bogsburtons gradually filled with light purple mist, gradually blending into the surrounding plants and animals, and even the wizards inside. These purple mists are unexpectedly beautiful and charming, but for some reason, they give people a creepy feeling. Just like poisonous mushrooms, bright and harmful. If you focus your eyes on these purple mists, magnify them by 1, 10, 100 or even 1,000 times, you will find that these mists seem to be composed of extremely tiny purple insects. These insects are really too tiny, seeming to be smaller than dust, but their number is extremely large, so at first glance, they are just purple mist. And in the sky, a tiny black shadow quietly watched everything in front of it. The sight is closer, the black shadow is enlarged, and a figure wearing a black robe, but with a pale and weird skin color emerges. It is the Dark Lord Voldemort. Feeling that the sacrificial magic circle was on track, Voldemort's scalded eyes flashed with excitement. He couldn't help licking his lips, revealing a bloodthirsty smile. Looking at the Bogsburtons' magic castle, which was still resisting stubbornly, Voldemort's eyes flashed with a cold light. The next moment, the U-wand in his hand waved slightly, as if receiving an order. The purple mist on the surface of the earth all followed the trajectory of the wand and suddenly gathered towards the Bogsburtons' castle in the center. In a blink of an eye, the purple mist was like a dragon, pouring into the Bogsburtons' school of magic from all directions. Wherever it passed, no grass grew. Even the withered weeds left a wisp of yellow sand in the end. The corpses on the ground did not even leave complete bones. If they were lucky, they would only leave some bone fragments. If they were unlucky, everything would disappear, as if they did not exist at all. The purple mist was like a swarm of insects, engulfing, swallowing, and digesting everything. No, there was one thing they did not affect, and that was the buildings of Bogsburtons. Under Voldemort's orders, they only approached at most, without erosion, let alone engulfment. In a sense, this shows Voldemort's absolute control over his purple insect plague. Soon, the purple mist was approaching the magic castle that was resisting stubbornly. The attacking Death Eaters suddenly felt the breath of death coming from behind, especially when they turned around and saw the large purple mist approaching from behind. They were frightened and stunned on the spot. They didn't know that this was the magic released by their master. Of course, Voldemort would not explain his plan to his men. However, when the Apostle Black Wizard found that these weapons passed over them without causing any impact, he suddenly realized that this might be the work of the master. Then, the purple mist was seen directly attached to the khaki defense barrier. Squeak, squeak, as if the sound of insects biting sounded one after another. In less than 10 seconds, it was visible to the naked eye that a hole was bitten directly in the khaki defense barrier. The next moment, without waiting for the defense barrier to be repaired, a large amount of purple mist entered the castle along the hole. It was visible to the naked eye that the wizard professors guarding the castle gate had just come into contact with the purple mist. After casting a few armor spells, the purple mist rolled with the golden light flashing. The next moment, the armor spell was broken, and the teachers wailed, cried in pain, and even begged for mercy. The wailing stopped in less than 2 or 3 seconds. Soon, the purple mist dissipated. The apostles were horrified to find that the wizards who had stubbornly resisted them for a long time, in the blink of an eye, they turned into bones. The subconscious fear in their hearts suddenly rose. And this is exactly what Voldemort wanted to see. He always led his men with fear and interests. These bones are to leave an impressive gift to these newly joined dark wizards. Tell them how great the price of betrayal is. The purple mist poured into every corner of the castle. They explored everything in the castle and killed all wizards who were ready to resist. In the end, they dedicated the freshest fruits to their masters. Ha ha ha. Voldemort in the sky closed his eyes and a breeze blew around him. The magic circle of killing and sacrifice on the ground was running fast, and the originally purple mist was stained with a ray of bright red. The magic circle was quickly activated, and the purple mist turned into blood red while rolling continuously. When the blood red mist was completely transformed, looking down from the sky, Voldemort's eyes flashed with joy, and then he waved his wand continuously, and the blood red mist below began to roll and rotate rapidly. It began to flow towards the direction of Voldemort in the sky. Inhale, inhale, inhale. Voldemort began to take a deep breath, constantly inhaling, constantly inhaling. The blood red mist poured directly into Voldemort's body. His body seemed to be a black hole, and large streams of mist kept pouring in, but it still did not stop. Feeling the terrifying energy fluctuations in the sky, the Death Eaters and the newly joined dark wizards below were horrified and fanatical. It seemed that they were excited about the strength of their master. As time passed slowly, the transformed blood red mist on the ground all poured into the sky and was absorbed by Voldemort. Voldemort, who originally had pale skin, now had blood red skin. But then, the blood red skin color gradually changed and turned into the flesh color of a normal person. Voldemort's originally pale and even hideous face also began to change gradually. The nose that had disappeared due to the black magic slowly appeared, and the pale and hideous face became more and more handsome. It was as if he had returned to his youth. No, to be precise, it was a middle-aged man full of maturity, mature and full of manliness. At this moment, Voldemort looked like a normal wizard. However, the scholard eyes seemed to still indicate that he was still the original Voldemort. Except for the change in his appearance and breath, nothing had changed. Cruel, dark, murderous, fearful, etc. are all his adjectives. In the previous battle with Lockhart, the sacrificed arm caused himself to be weakened to a certain extent. Later, there was not much time for himself to recover. He encountered the trap left by Tom. The fierce battle with Tom not long ago, I thought I could win in one fell swoop. But the strange flame was really powerful, especially the effect on the soul. It was simply targeting his weakness. Although he tried his best to avoid it, he still couldn't avoid being harmed by it. Therefore, the top priority is to restore his strength, return to the peak state, or even go further. Only with strong strength. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The breeze was blowing, and Voldemort's figure gradually fell, landing in front of many Death Eaters and Dark Wizards. At the gate of the huge castle, a middle-aged wizard in a black robe and elegant manner looked at everything in front of him indifferently. All the Death Eaters and wizards seemed to feel the ubiquitous and harmful pressure with their own hands. They all knelt on one knee on the ground, lowered their heads, held their wands in both hands, and raised them high above their heads to show their submission. Congratulations, Master. Congratulations, Master. The French wizarding world is already a pearl in your crown. Congratulations, Master. Congratulations, Master. Congratulations, Master. Congratulations, Master. The wizard's congratulations rang out, and the voices became louder and louder, filled with excitement and joy. This is a wizarding world. The living wizarding world was conquered like this. It really made them feel that all this was a dream. Yes, Voldemort first attacked the French Ministry of Magic. When the Ministry of Magic was captured, he immediately invaded Box-Batons without stopping. He eliminated the last possible resistance force in the French wizarding world. Therefore, the support that Box-Batons had been expecting until just now has never arrived, because they had already fallen. Now the French wizarding world is completely in Voldemort's hands. Hearing the congratulations and cheers from his subordinates, Voldemort also had a faint smile on his face. But then, as if he thought of something, his face turned cold. Conquering a wizarding world without its own top power, is nothing to boast about. For a top wizard like Grindelwald, as long as there is no existence of the same level, then everything is crushing. Just like he is now crushing the entire French wizarding world. None of this is important. The most important thing is that he wants revenge. Revenge on Dumbledore, revenge on Tom. He also wanted to avenge Gilderoy Lockhart, the mastermind behind all his miserable experiences. He was used as a tool and a puppet. Aren't you afraid of being attacked by him? Kamar-Taj, secret space. On the green lawn, a giant dragon covered in snow white was half lying on the lawn. His huge eyes were staring at two fighting figures not far away, one of whom was his master, Wanda. Whoosh, whoosh. Wanda held two red flame chains tightly with both hands, controlled the chains, and waved them at the enemy on the opposite side. And Ian, who was fighting with him, took strange steps, and waved his wand from time to time. Transfiguration spells were cast quickly, and the soil on the ground turned into iron rods, shields, common things, etc. Attacking Wanda on the opposite side and blocking her. Clang, clang, clang. The continuous clanging sound seemed to indicate the fierceness of the battle between the two. Chapter 531, Wanda's battle with the dragons. I obey. Shattered to pieces. Crimson whip. Bang, 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 crackle. On the grass, Wanda skillfully swung the crimson whip and quickly hit Ian on the opposite side. Seeing this, Ian stepped lightly, and the magic boots on his feet flashed a green glimmer. He retreated like a green wind to avoid the upcoming attack. While retreating, he waved the wand in his hand continuously, and a series of attack spells shining with red light shot towards Wanda one after another. The crackling sound of the whip waving, mixed with the swift spells passing through the air, made a whistling sound of the wind. After a few bangs, most of the spells were defeated by the crimson whip, but there were still a few repelling spells, disarming spells, and crushing spells that successfully hit Wanda's body. The red light flashed one after another, and the wizard robes that Wanda wore successfully resisted. But the impact was inevitable, and she staggered back a few steps, glaring at Ian on the opposite side. It seemed as if he was blaming the other party for not showing mercy to her. He was so beautiful, but he showed no mercy at all. Snap! With a light snap of his fingers, Wanda's pupils instantly turned golden red, like a flame of nirvana. The long whip in his hand turned into a red light spot, spreading to the surroundings and disappearing. At the same time, several dark red, blazing fire dragons with a scorching breath appeared behind him. Ian looked at the fire dragons that were slowly moving around and preparing to surround him. His face became serious, but he couldn't help but start to complain in his heart. Sure enough, having talent means being unreasonable. Such an attack would take him a long time to prepare alone. Without waiting for these blazing fire dragons to surround him, Ian waved the magic wand in his hand, and large streams of white mist gushed out from the tip of the magic wand, quickly covering the surroundings. Prepare to create a foggy area to further cover the blazing fire dragons and Wanda's observation range. Provide a more powerful dual space for your subsequent battle. Roar, roar, roar. As if sensing Ian's thoughts, the flaming dragons that surrounded him roared and spewed hot flames from their mouths. burning the white fog that obscured his vision. And Ian would not sit still and wait for death. He waved his magic wand one after another, and the white mist condensed into various shapes to bind, restrict, and obscure the fire dragon's movements. For a moment, a large area of white mist spread around, covering the surrounding grasslands and plains, and even covering the Ukrainian iron belly resting in the distance. At this moment, the Ukrainian iron belly with snow white skin raised its head slightly and looked at the center of this section of white mist. Looking at the occasional flames and the roar of the fire dragon, a look of nostalgia and desire rose in its deep red eyes. It has been the master's war pet for a month or two. These 1 or 2 months can be said to be the happiest time in its life. Not only has it not been continuously whipped and tortured, but even the injuries it has suffered over the years have been healed. He doesn't have to do anything all day long, just carry his master around and enjoy the admiring eyes of other little wizards. Not to mention the food he eats every day. It is really delicious and very suitable for his appetite. It's just like a dream. Compared with his previous life, it's like one is in heaven and the other is in hell. However, when the dragon is full and has no pressure, he can't help but think about other things. He was captured in Gringotts when he was very young, but he clearly remembers the scenery of his hometown, those trees, those grasses, those weak and interesting prey. Of course, there are also his father and mother. Yes, when there is no external threat, he misses his hometown, his father and mother. When he was immersed in the memory of his childhood, suddenly, Ziobe, come quickly and help me deal with Ian. The red mark in the depths of the soul flickered, and Wanda's somewhat hurried and unwilling voice sounded in the heart of the dragon. Without caring about how low this name was, he began to flap his wings, and spikes on his body began to emerge, as if to indicate that he had entered a combat state. Yes, it still had a mission, which was to fight its master. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The slender and huge wings kept flapping, and the whirring sound of the wind sounded, driving away the nearby white mist. It seemed that it had also discovered that this Ukrainian iron belly had joined the battlefield. Ian, who was far away, had an idea and raised his magic wand slightly. As soon as Ziobe flew into the air, the white mist around him turned into thick chains, trying to bind Ziobe's neck, tail, legs, and wings. It would be better if it was not bound. Seeing a large number of chains wrapped around his body, the dragon suddenly recalled the miserable years in Gringotts, and the anger in his eyes began to emerge uncontrollably. As if stimulated by something, the whole dragon suddenly entered a state of madness. Roar, roar, roar. A roar filled with anger and even madness sounded, and dark green stripes began to appear on the dragon's originally snow-white skin, and the spikes turned dark green. The huge dragon's might began to spread around, and the strong muscles of the hind legs began to swell. The wings flapped, and the legs suddenly ran forward, like a truck, rushing towards the location of the smoke. Snap, snap, snap. The white mist locks tied nearby were broken one by one with a snapping sound, which could not stop the angry dragon at all. Ziobe, good job. Just like that, charge. Wanda seemed to be unaware of the dragon's current state. Looking at the powerful and even frightening ferocity, she cheered excitedly. It must be said that having such a ferocious dragon as one's pet is not only very face-saving, but also really exciting. Boom, 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 roar, roar, roar. Feeling the ground shaking, the sound of running, and the roar of the dragon came to my ears. Ian's serious face inevitably showed a trace of bitterness. This is a bit unethical. We were fighting well, and you asked for help. And smashed to pieces. Repel quickly. The magic wand waved quickly, and red spells hit the dragon's wings one by one, trying to limit the opponent's sprint. However, when the spell hit the wings, a dark green light flashed, and the two cancelled each other out. The wings continued to wave, seemingly unaffected. Looking at this scene in front of him, Ian, who kept retreating and dodging, couldn't help but twitch his mouth. With such a high magic defense ability, it is simply the nemesis of wizards. However, if he really wants to deal with such skills, he is not without a way. He has also practiced a lot of black magic spells targeting the soul. If he really uses it, I'm afraid this dragon will not be able to deal with it, and he may even lose his life if he is not careful. But this is Wanda's war pet, and it has only been kept for a month or two. If it is really killed, I'm afraid Wanda will not be able to treat him well in the future. Zaya, speed up. Don't let him dodge. Flash your wings harder. Don't worry about the spell. Come, I'll give you something good. Be careful, be careful. Ian is going to run away. He's going to run to the east. Breathe fire, breathe fire. Quickly breathe fire on Ian's spell puppets. Looking at Ian jumping up and down being chased by her own pet Zaya, Wanda, who had just fallen into a disadvantage, cheered excitedly. Chattering, she kept commanding the dragon to attack. Finally, Wanda, quickly stop the white dragon. I give up, I give up. Chapter 532 Wanda, I'm too narrow-minded. Zaya, stop. Wanda's clear voice sounded, and she made a strange gesture with her hands. At the same time, the Acranian iron belly that was attacking Yang had a deep red mark on its snow-white forehead skin. The next moment, roar. The dragon that was chasing Ian in the air roared, as if unwilling. But it still flapped its wings and slowly landed on the ground. Ian, who was in the air at this moment, breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he waved his magic wand helplessly, and the white mist that filled the surroundings quickly dissipated. At this moment, Wanda also walked to the side of the dragon. As if sensing the arrival of the master, the dark green lines on the dragon's skin gradually disappeared, and the spikes began to shrink and disappear, revealing the original snow-white skin. After seeing this, Wanda touched the soft and smooth skin of the dragon with love, stepped lightly, flew into the sky, and then slowly landed on the top of the dragon's head. At this moment, Ian also flew down slowly, landing at the same level as Wanda. She said helplessly, "Wanda, how are you playing?" "Hey." She didn't finish her words, but just sighed, revealing her helplessness. "Anyway, it's fine as long as I win," Wanda said confidently. "Zaya is also my pet, and it counts as my fighting power." Well, she also knew that summoning the dragon Zaya was meaningless for combat training. No matter how powerful Zaya was, it couldn't improve her combat experience. The most important thing was that she was a wizard, not a summoner. She relied on magic, not a pet. Putting the cart before the horse. If Steve knew about this, he would have to talk about it for a long time. After hearing this, Ian felt helpless and didn't continue. He seemed to know that he couldn't win the argument. His tongue was really not as good as Remy's. "Ian, are you free recently?" Suddenly, Wanda asked Ian. "What's the matter?" Ian nodded and asked directly. When Wanda saw Ian nod, she showed a flattering smile. "Do you want to apply for going out with Teacher Carter?" Hearing this, Ian looked into Wanda's green eyes, but did not nod. Instead, he looked serious and waited for Wanda to give a reason. Kamar-Taj, after all, is now established in the form of a school. Do you think Hogwarts usually allows young wizards to go out? Moreover, it has only been about 3 or 4 months since Kamar-Taj was established and opened for school, and the first batch of students has not yet formed a certain combat power. Therefore, under the decision of Lockhart and Vice Principal Peggy Carter, it is in a closed state. Of course, the most important thing is that we don't want Kamar-Taj to become the source of chaos in the world dream. After all, with the current size of Kamar-Taj, it is easy to alarm the entire wizarding world and then affect the world dream. Lockhart has learned such a lesson, so he asked Carter to give the order. However, for the earliest students like Ian, Wanda, Remy, and Vera, the restrictions are not so strict. But a joint application is also required. Without a legitimate reason, it is impossible and not allowed for students to leave privately. After all, let's not talk about the teacher-student relationship. Lockhart has invested a lot of resources and effort in them. If any of them loses, Lockhart will be very sad. After hearing this, Ian still did not reply and continued to wait for Wanda's explanation. And Wanda also understood, so she jumped lightly, flew off the dragon's head, and landed on the ground. After walking a few steps, she patted Zyaobe's huge wings. She said a little embarrassedly, "Recently, especially just now, I felt that Zyaobe wanted to go back to his hometown to have a look. So, I want to take it back to have a look. Fulfill his wish." Wanda felt a little guilty, because the reason for going out was indeed a little bit unreasonable, and even felt like making an excuse. Well, she did want to take Zyaobe back to her hometown to have a look, but she also wanted to take this opportunity to observe the environment of the wizarding world. After all, after arriving in the wizarding world, Wanda would either stay in Lockhart's magic suitcase or stay in the secret space of Kamar-Taj. She had never been to Hogwarts and had only been to Gringotts once, not to mention other environments. She hadn't even visited Diagon Alley much and hadn't been to any legitimate wizard shops. It would be a lie to say that she wasn't curious. Ian wasn't stupid and naturally understood Wanda's real purpose for the reasons Wanda gave. He pondered for a moment and thought carefully. Then actually, you can apply to Teacher Carter for a project. Ian said slowly, a project about the reproduction and life of dragons in the Kamar-Taj ecosystem. Visiting advanced technology, accumulating initial experience, and laying the foundation for the subsequent dragon breeding. Although Kamar-Taj has made a lot of additions in terms of magical creatures, dragons are very rare. Our project is conducive to. At the same time, apply for some financial support. Contact the local Ministry of Magic through Kamar-Taj's channels. Hearing Ian skillfully listing the reasons one by one, as well as various plans for free food, drink, and fun, Wang Zai's eyes flickered. Inexplicably, he suddenly realized, what is the pattern? This is the pattern. They are not going out to play, but clearly making a huge contribution to the construction of Kamar-Taj's magical biological ecosystem. It turns out that you can get the wool in this way, and you can get it from the tutor. It is undeniable that this meaningful project is very meaningful, but it also requires a lot of manpower. My personal suggestion is to let Remy and Vera join. The number of people should not be too large. Too many people will cause confusion. 4 people are just right. Okay, no problem. Wang Zi kept nodding his head, his face full of joy. With such a person to give advice, there is no need to rack your brains to find excuses. I'll talk to Remy and Vera. You talk to Teacher Carter about this project. Leave it to you. Wanda did not hesitate and immediately pushed the most difficult task to Ian. The more capable, the more work, right? Ian, who just came up with so many reasons and benefits, can definitely easily convince fool Teacher Carter. In short, with her brain, she can't think of so many benefits, reasons. As for Remy and Vera, Wanda really can't think of any reason for them to refuse such a good thing. After hearing this, Ian was speechless. I couldn't help but say, it's best for the 4 of us to go together. At the same time, let Xiaobei pretend to be in pain. No, you go find Vera and ask her to make some potions that can weaken the dragon. Then the 4 of us plus a dragon will go find Teacher Carter. Hearing this, Wanda suddenly realized and couldn't help but give Ian a thumbs up in her heart. I'm too narrow-minded. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 533 Harry's Trio and Wanda's Team. In the afternoon, in the British wizarding world, Diagon Alley. Vera, are we going to Hogwarts to take a look? I heard that their forbidden forest breeds many magical creatures, even centaurs. On the spacious streets of Diagon Alley, 2 men and 2 women strolled slowly forward. From time to time, they stopped in front of a shop and looked at it, as if they were attracted by the items sold in the shop. Every time they entered a shop, it didn't take long for the boss to see them off with a smile on his face. Just looking at the boss's smile, you can tell that the amount of money they spent on the items they bought was not small. The 2 men and 2 women looked very young, and their looks were outstanding. It's not an exaggeration to say that they were handsome men and beautiful women. Especially the delicate faces of the 2 beauties attracted the attention of the pedestrians around. But the most eye-catching one was the red-haired witch, because she had a pet similar to a fire dragon standing on her shoulder. The snow-white body, matched with the shrunken body, looked very cute. From time to time, it would flap its small wings, fly into the air, and follow behind the witch. He is Wanda's pet Xiaobei, who is specially cast with a spell to shrink his body. When needed, he can also quickly expand and fight for Wanda. At this moment, Wanda curiously asked Vera, who had the best relationship with her, When Vera heard Wanda's request to enter Hogwarts, she immediately shook her head and said, without a legitimate reason, Hogwarts generally does not accept outsiders to enter. After all, many young wizards are studying there now. As for the Forbidden Forest, there are indeed many magical creatures in it, and it also hides the largest centaur tribe in the wizarding world. However, Hogwarts generally does not allow people to enter, unless they sneak in, or force their way in. Hearing this, Wanda was a little dejected. With the reason that Ian was studying dragons and the joint application of the 4 people, Teacher Carter did not have too many obstacles. After requiring them to finally come up with practical research results, then let them go directly. Of course, the premise is that they should not make trouble in the name of Kamar-Taj. Peggy Carter emphasized this point because Lockhart sneaked into the dream of the world and stole the origin of the dream. He needed a stable social environment. The 4 of them were trained by Lockhart, and after many trainings, they had all been exposed to and even controlled the dream world of Kamar-Taj. They had long passed the stage of being willful, and they all had a line in their hearts about what to do and what not to do. As for forcing their way into Hogwarts, if it was a mission, they would not hesitate. But just for sightseeing and playing, it was a bit not worth it. Vera, how about we go to France? I remember you said your father is a famous alchemist in France. Let's go to your house and have some fun. At this moment, Wanda completely forgot about the idea of Xiaobei, the fire dragon standing on her shoulder, going home. After hearing this, Vera looked a little strange, opened his mouth, but finally did not say anything. After hearing this, Remy on the side said speechlessly, Wanda, you really don't pay attention to the current situation? Now France has been conquered by Voldemort. Let's go there to deliver food. It's not Britain, and it's not shrouded by the dream world, so we can't borrow power. Hearing this, Wanda smiled awkwardly. Well, she really didn't pay attention to these things. She seemed to have heard of them, but she didn't care. Because the wizard world really had nothing to do with her. She was just curious. Then Vera, how are your parents? Wanda changed the subject directly. They went to Egypt. There is an alchemy association in Egypt that invited them to conduct a certain research. Wanda's eyes lit up when she heard Vera's answer. The 2 worlds are roughly similar in many places, including the country of Egypt. She had heard about the legendary pyramids in Egypt in the original world before, but she had never really been there. Why don't we go to Egypt to see the pyramids? Hearing what Wanda said, Vera and others didn't respond. Xiaobei landed on her shoulder and gently flapped Wanda's face with his wings. It seemed to remind her, didn't you say to take it back to his hometown to take a look? Egypt. It's a long way from his hometown, the Black Forest in Albania. After Wanda felt the emotions coming from the contract, she gently fiddled with Xiaobei's wings and pushed it away. This time he came out just to have fun. It's okay to take Xiaobei back to his hometown. Let's talk about it later. Going to Egypt? How can we explain this to Teacher Carter? Egypt is not a place where dragons live. We are here under the pretext of studying dragons. No matter what, we should at least do a good job on the surface. We can't just say we are studying how well dragons can adapt to the desert environment. I feel like Teacher Carter will look at us like idiots if we say that. Remy, who was standing by, complained. Okay, where are we going? Wanda thought about it carefully after hearing this, and it was true. But she didn't want to go directly to the forest. She wanted to eat, drink, and play first. Then go to the forest to explore. That would be perfect. Ian looked at the sky, thought for a moment, and said, why don't we go to Hogsmeade next to Hogwarts? It's very prosperous there, with many interesting things, and many little wizards like it very much. After you get tired of walking around, you can go to the Hog's Head to rest. That's where I worked before. I'm familiar with it, and I have a good relationship with the boss. Then we'll discuss where to go tomorrow. Hogsmeade, the underground passage of the Homping Willow. Click, click, click. Harry, slow down. Wait for Ron. Ron is still behind. Along with the click of wood, Hermione's slightly urgent voice came from the head. Harry, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped and turned to look at Hermione, who was jogging behind him. His eyes were slightly indifferent and slightly alienated. This made Hermione slow down her pace and slightly raised her head to look at Harry's indifferent expression. Although Professor McGonagall explained that Harry was affected by some dark magic, which caused some changes in his emotions. But seeing Harry like this, Hermione was still not used to it. Yes, although Lockhart invited Harry to join Kamar-Taj, and even used his mother Lily as an excuse. But after staying for a few days, Harry still chose to leave. Tom Riddle's emotions were still affecting him. Every time he saw Lockhart, the rejection in his heart and the desire to escape would come out uncontrollably. Lockhart did not stop Harry from leaving. Of course he knew the reason. However, whether Harry left now or not, it would not affect the final result. Trample. 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 At this moment, the red-haired Ron also hurried over. Seeing this, Harry said coldly, "Let's go. Hogsmeade is ahead. I will buy some magic materials by then. If you want to go anywhere, you can go by yourself." Chapter 534. Dumbledore, you are still strong despite your old age. Hogsmeade, the Hog's Head pub. Credence, don't just drink, come and help or chat. Aberforth stood on the counter and shouted to his son who had returned from the United States not far away. He now also has a head full of white hair and a grey beard, just like Dumbledore. But his son Credence is unusually young, with short black hair and a young face, as if he is only in his 20s. It is difficult for ordinary people to imagine that the relationship between these two is father and son. However, this is magic. Powerful wizards always have ways to extend their lifespans and keep themselves young. Especially wizards like Credence who could fight Grindelwald 1 or 2 when they were young. With superhuman talent and years of training, he is currently considered a powerful wizard in the entire wizarding world. At this moment, the black-haired wizard who was drinking was a little impatient when facing his father's call, but still stood up and walked slowly with his glass in hand. How is the situation in the United States? Why did you run back from the United States? Seeing his son coming forward, Aberforth poured a glass of his best whiskey and asked with concern. His son, because of some experiences in his childhood. Although he acknowledged the relationship between the two, it seems that they don't really get along like father and son. On the contrary, the way they get along is more like friends. Credence could of course hear Aberforth's concerned tone, and he didn't hide it. After taking a sip of the flaming whiskey, he introduced the current situation in the United States. In the United States, how should I put it? Although the appearance of goblins is far beyond the expectations of wizards. But the situation has finally stabilized. The confrontation between Dumbledore and Grindelwald has at least reduced the heat on the battlefield by 1 level. Credence briefly introduced. As for my return this time. At this point, Credence showed an unwilling look on his face. I fought with Grindelwald before, and wanted to see if there was a chance to kill him, or injure him severely after so many years of seal. However, that strength is beyond my imagination. Are you okay? Aberforth asked immediately with concern before Credence finished speaking. This is his only son, his last bloodline, and he is very precious. He can't take my life. Credence seemed reluctant to say more. But looking at the unwilling look on his face, it seems that he also suffered a lot in the battle with Grindelwald. Then I heard that Dumbledore came to the United States and was ready to meet him to form an alliance to deal with Grindelwald. Unexpectedly, Dumbledore asked me to help him do something. What is it? When Aberforth heard his brother's request, the nerves in his heart immediately tensed up. Family members know their own affairs. His brother Dumbledore's calculations are simply full of tricks. 2 generations of Dark Lords were killed or sealed by Dumbledore alone. Credence hesitated after hearing this, not knowing whether he should tell his father. Although Dumbledore asked not to let anyone know and emphasized confidentiality. However, to be honest with Dumbledore, he did not trust him that much. If he had not helped him when he was young, and the 2 sides were still uncle and nephew, I'm afraid he would not agree. At this moment, suddenly, "Boss, I'm here. I brought my good friends to see you." Ian's voice came from a distance. After hearing the familiar voice, Aberforth instantly looked up at the door. Seeing the familiar Ian and the 3 wizards behind him. Thinking of the other party Kamar-Taj and the relationship with Lockhart, the smile on his face was a little complicated. But he still greeted, "Ian, here you are. What do you and your friends want to drink?" What do you want to eat? Order whatever you want. I'm treating today. At this time, Ian and Wanda walked to the counter. Ian introduced Aberforth, the boss who had taken good care of him. Boss, these three are my best friends. Then he pointed at the three and introduced them. Remy, Vera, Wanda. Today I brought them to the Hog's Head to taste your cooking skills. Ian finished speaking and turned his head to look at Credence, the black-haired man beside him. Just now, I saw that the two seemed to be communicating. This is my son, Credence. Aberforth did not hide this at all and was even very proud. Son? Before Ian spoke, Wanda was a little surprised. She looked at Aberforth, who was nearly 70 or 80 years old, and the young man who looked only 20 years old. He is really strong in old age. This strange thought suddenly emerged in Wanda's heart. Creston, who was beside her, had already noticed this red-haired witch. Seeing the strange expression on Wanda's face, his eyes moved, and the divine mind was slightly activated, and he immediately read the other party's general emotions. Little girl, I'm already over 60 years old. Creston laughed. At the same time, Wanda, who seemed to have sensed the absorption of divine thoughts, subconsciously showed a sense of vigilance on her face. However, when she heard Creston mention her age, she was a little bit unbelievable. An old man in his 60s, with a face of 20 years old. How do you maintain your appearance? Wanda's eyes lit up instantly. She didn't intend to pursue the absorption of divine thoughts just now. She asked with a hint of urgency, can I also learn? Regarding Wanda's question, Vera on the side also listened attentively. Love of beauty, this is the nature of witches. Even Ian and Remy silently planned to remember it. Eternal youth is also a temptation for them. Creston looked at the eyes and expressions of the four people. He knew what they were thinking without absorbing divine thoughts. So he smiled and prepared to refuse. This is related to the talent of our family. I'm afraid it's a bit difficult for you to achieve my level. Hearing this, Wanda was a little disappointed. However, when Creston set his sights on the white man on Wanda's shoulder, he seemed to sense something. His expression changed slightly, and then he immediately changed his words. However, I have previously studied several potions to maintain youthful vitality, as well as some methods. Although it can't achieve the effect I have now, it can still keep a wizard at his most beautiful for a long time. Do you need it? As a powerful wizard in the wizarding world, his experience is enough to write a thick book. Aren't they just some methods to stay young and beautiful? He really has quite a few in his hands. Wanda. After hearing this, Vera's face lit up instantly, and then Vera took a step forward with some reserve, and said slowly, Sir Credence, what do you need? Gold galleons, magic knowledge, or magic items, we can pay. For Vera's idea of a formal transaction. Credence, in his heart, admired Vera's maturity, but he still had to kill those who should be killed. Just as he was about to speak, suddenly, Credence seemed to sense something. His eyes condensed, and his sights were fixed on the door of the Pig's Head bar. The black-red flame in the middle of his pupil flickered slightly, and a figure wearing a black wizard robe and with a lightning scar on his forehead came into view. It was Harry Potter. Chapter 535. New defense against the dark arts professor. Tada. 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 Harry Potter looked indifferent and walked slowly towards the Hog's Head at a leisurely pace. Hermione and Ron followed closely behind. No matter what, Harry would always be their friend. Although Harry had changed a lot recently, these were not the reasons for the breakdown of their friendship. Drink, drink. My brother must have a drink today. I'm late. Drink first. Just after entering the Hog's Head, Hermione couldn't help but frown when she heard the noisy drinking and persuading people to drink. Sure enough, the rumors that the black market traded in the Hog's Head were not false. It was so chaotic and noisy, and it was perfect for some secret transactions. Just as Hermione subconsciously followed Harry forward, suddenly, tada! Harry's footsteps suddenly stopped, and Hermione behind him didn't have time to react, and almost bumped into Harry. But at the critical moment, Ron pulled her back, let her come back to her senses. And when he was puzzled, he followed Harry's stopped line of sight, and looked at the bar counter. He saw 5 handsome men and beautiful women. 3 men and 2 women, with outstanding looks, subconsciously attracted his attention. At this moment, Harry, following the sudden sense of verism in the depths of his soul, looked directly at Credence. Looking at the black and red flames in the other's eyes, he followed his instinct and began to operate the brain block rapidly. "Harry Potter," Wanda said in surprise, "why are you here?" At the same time, she waved to Harry. Ian, Remy and others on the side also smiled. When Harry was in Kamar-Taj before, his mentor Lockhart had once expressed the idea of accepting him as an apprentice. Although Harry eventually chose to return to Hogwarts. But Wanda and others still believed that Harry would eventually return to Kamar-Taj and become their companion. Not because of the invitation of his mentor Lockhart, but because they firmly believed that Kamar-Taj was the future of the wizarding world. This is the future. No matter whether it is the Dark Lord, the White Lord, or the Ministry of Magic, Hogwarts, they can't stop this trend from coming. Harry will only enter Kamar-Taj in the end and follow them into the new world. As for Harry's rejection of the invitation to be a mentor, did he feel disgusted? There was definitely some surprise, but not disgust. They were not ordinary little wizards with the resources they enjoyed. Even an idiot could become a smart person just by drinking potions. Not to mention their teachers, who are all top bosses in various fields. Would his character be bad if he was trained by a righteous hero like Steve? Would his emotional intelligence and IQ be bad if he was taught by a top agent like Carter? Would his fighting and alertness be bad if he was trained by a powerful wizard like Snape? Would his learning and research abilities be bad if he was taught by a famous teacher like Lockhart? The resources they enjoyed were first class, or even top notch, even for Kamar-Taj and the Marvel world. They were not bad in talent, and Lockhart trained them to be all-rounders and pillars. If you rejected and hated them because of such a small matter, you would be looking down on them. "Hello, Wanda." After a slight hesitation, Harry took Hermione and Ron to the bar and replied to Wanda, "Don't hit a smiling person." Besides, Wanda treated him very well when they were in Kamar-Taj. Not only did she take him to various places in Kamar-Taj, she also took him to travel the dream world. At this moment, Hermione saw the red-haired witch Wanda, who was taller than her and very beautiful. For some reason, a sense of vigilance suddenly emerged in her heart. It was as if her own field was provoked. "Hello, I'm Harry's good friend, Hermione Granger." Just call her Hermione. As she said that, Hermione pulled Ron aside and introduced him. "He is Ron. We are all from Gryffindor College." "Hello, Hermione, Ron." Wanda smiled gently and then introduced Ian and the other four. After the introduction, she set her sights on Credence, hesitated for a moment, and also introduced, "This is Credence. He is also the owner of this bar." Well, it feels a bit inappropriate to introduce the other party's age directly, but the bar is in Aberforth, so his son should also be the owner of the Pig's Head Bar. Aberforth, who was standing aside, stroked his beard and smiled after hearing this. He seemed to be very satisfied with what Wanda said. Of course, he was very happy that his son inherited his Hogshead Inn. However, he also knew in his heart that this was probably impossible. Credence was over 60 years old and had experienced as much as he did. How could he still fight alone? Although he didn't know what Credence was doing now, he was definitely better than himself. "Hello, Harry Potter." Credence extended his hand politely to Harry and said, "I came from the United States and was entrusted by Dumbledore to come to Hogwarts to teach you some magic to control yourself." Yes, when Lockhart introduced Harry's current state to McGonagall, McGonagall naturally reported it to Dumbledore. How do you know that Harry was affected by Voldemort's soul? And even when the two merged, he couldn't help but think of the Obscurus. After all, it was difficult for Dumbledore to think about how to let a child fully accept the negative emotions accumulated by the Dark Lord's killing and evil deeds for many years. Although strength and other aspects will show rapid progress, it would be really bad if an Obscurus appeared. Therefore, he asked Credence, who was an Obscurus and could control his own situation, to come and teach Harry for a while. Of course, although the two were relatives, he also paid for things that satisfied Credence, the library of Hogwarts and some precious clues. "Hello, Mr. Credence." Hearing that it was Dumbledore, Harry was a little repulsive, but he just shook hands lightly and said hello simply. Yes, Voldemort hated Lockhart very much, but he also had a lot of repulsion towards Dumbledore. Harry would naturally be affected, but for some reason, he was only a little repulsive and indifferent. It was far from the level of disgust like Kamar-Taj and Lockhart, who wanted to escape. Well, Harry originally occupied the position of the protagonist in the trajectory of fate, and the miracle of the previous soul fusion, the world consciousness, had invested a lot in it. And Lockhart, with the help of Kamar-Taj's dream world, stirred up the storm in the dream of the world, and stole the origin. What do you think the world consciousness would do? Harry just wanted to escape out of disgust, which was already due to the fact that Harry admired Lockhart before. Otherwise, it would have taken action long ago. You know, Harry, who had merged with the fragments of Voldemort's soul, was much stronger than before. Otherwise, Dumbledore would not have allowed Credence to come to Hogwarts to teach Harry as the defense against the dark arts professor. Yes, Credence Barebone, also known as Aurelius Dumbledore. He is currently the defense against the dark arts professor at Hogwarts. Chapter 536, being caught by the professor when playing truant. Professor of defense against the dark arts? Professor Credence, you are really a professor at Hogwarts. When Credence introduced his current position, Wanda was immediately excited. Since coming to the wizarding world, the name of Hogwarts has been passed down too many times, including Ian, Remy, and Vera. They have also mentioned it, which has made Wanda's curiosity burst. Otherwise, she would not have gone to the Forbidden Forest to take a look right after the release of Kamar-Taj. Yes, Dumbledore invited me to be the professor of the dark arts. Let me help the little wizard improve his defense against the dark arts. Credence said with a smile. Really? Hermione's tone was mixed with a hint of doubt, and a trace of distrust appeared in her eyes. To be honest, there was no way to make them trust it. After all, school has only been open for a month or two. The position of the professor of the dark arts is still held by Snape. It really feels bad to be scolded by Snape every day. If the other party is telling the truth, it would be great. Hermione thought silently in her heart. Ron on the side was already a little excited. Damn Snape, it's time to get out. Being scolded in potions class is fine. But being scolded in dark arts class, who can stand it? Especially when Harry has been performing perfectly recently. He picked on him. Well, actually Snape also wanted to find fault with Hermione, but Hermione also performed perfectly. After pointing out some minor problems, he turned all his firepower on Ron. Professor Credence, welcome, welcome. Ron cheered directly. In addition to Slytherin, our Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, and Hufflepuff, 3 houses will definitely cheer and celebrate your arrival. Seeing Ron's cheering expression, as if he had met a savior, Credence was a little confused. He has been in the United States all the time, and if it weren't for Grindelwald, he would not have come to the UK. He didn't know much about Snape, and he had only heard of this person. At most, he knew a little about Professor McGonagall, but not much. However, he was welcomed by the little wizards of Hogwarts just after arriving in the UK, so he was in a good mood. But, Harry, Ron, Hermione, I remember that today is not Hogsmeade's open day. How did you run away from Hogwarts? Credence's somewhat puzzled voice sounded in his ears. Hermione and Ron's expression suddenly changed. Hermione held the wizard robe tightly with both hands at that time. Ron lowered his head. The original joyful expression disappeared. Now he was a little pale, as if he was frightened. Being caught truant by the new professor on the spot. This is big news. Forget it. I haven't seen Professor McGonagall yet. I will pretend that I didn't see it today. But next time you should pay attention. I remember that you are only in the 3rd grade. It's not good to skip school in the 3rd grade. Noticing the expressions of Ron and Hermione, Credence comforted them. But he also obviously noticed Harry's indifferent expression, as if he was not affected at all. This made Credence certain in his heart that it seemed that Harry was indeed affected. When he realized his identity just now, the other party's mood did not change at all. No, to be precise, the other party has been on guard, and the brain occlusion is always running, covering up all emotional changes. Is this really a little wizard? Looking at Harry's right hand in a fighting posture, where he can draw the wand at any time. It is no different from a battle-hardened wizard. On the side, Ian, who has been paying attention to Harry, seems to have noticed Harry's changes. But he didn't think much about it, because when the two met in Kamar-Taj before, the two sides even fought. Although he won in the end, it can be said that Harry's fighting level is worthy of Ian's attention. Moreover, to be honest, he can sense that there seems to be some kind of power in Harry's body that has not been used. This power brings him a great sense of danger. Professor Credence, do you think we can also enter Hogwarts to take a look? Speaking of this, Wanda seemed to have thought of something and took out a piece of parchment from the space extension bag on her waist. Facing the young man in his 60s, he said in a flattering manner, "We also have a mission this time. We are conducting a research project on the life and cultivation of fire dragons. Can you take us into Hogwarts to borrow some books? It would be even better if we can enter the Forbidden Forest. It is really a case of looking for a way out." Just now, it was said that it would be difficult to enter Hogwarts this time, and that centaurs would not be allowed to be seen. As a result, he met a professor at Hogwarts. With the permission of the professor at Hogwarts, wouldn't everything be clear, reasonable, legitimate, and simply too perfect? When Credence heard what Wanda said about the fire dragon research, his eyes were once again on Ziobe on Wanda's shoulder. With a mysterious smile on his lips, he seemed to be thinking, then slowly nodded and agreed. "Okay, of course you are welcome. I believe Professor McGonagall will not refuse young wizards like you to come to Hogwarts. I will communicate with Professor McGonagall tonight. If there is no problem, I will write to you." Aberforth on the side saw that his son Creston agreed to Wanda's request for Kamar-Taj wizards. He couldn't help but want to speak, but in the end he held back and chose to keep silent. His eyes couldn't help but fall on the jade rectangle used for swiping cards in the upper left corner of the counter again. Wizard Tenpei. Lockhart is really changing the world imperceptibly. These thoughts appeared in his mind again, and Aberforth felt a little complicated looking at Ian, who was not his son, but better than his son. And Ian also felt Aberforth's gaze, and immediately responded with a bright smile. After his parents died, only the boss has been taking care of him. He is very grateful in his heart. Ding. Boss, don't fight with me this time. I'll treat you to dinner tonight. Boss, don't refuse. You must cook your best. Ian's brisk voice sounded, and the familiar sound of swiping a card came to his ears. He looked at the words 500 gold galleons displayed on the wizard's tenpei. Aberforth was stunned for a moment. For some reason, a warm current suddenly surged in his heart. This silly boy really thought he was poor. At night, Hogwarts, the deputy principal's office. What? Harry and the others ran out of Hogwarts again. Why are they so disobedient? Again made Creston on the opposite side speechless. Professor McGonagall, Principal Dumbledore, please, you should know about my affairs. What is his latest situation now? Are you sure you understand? Professor McGonagall, after hearing it just now, was about to say that everything was under control. Suddenly, he recalled that Harry had skipped school again and was caught on the spot by Creston and others. He opened his mouth, but didn't say what was in his heart. In the end, he just sighed helplessly. When Creston saw McGonagall sighing, he seemed to understand. So, Professor McGonagall, in that case, I will use my own way to understand Harry's condition. Next, I hope to get your cooperation in everything. Chapter 537, The Glory of the Dragon, The Fall of the Elves. Hogwarts, Library. Wanda, this is the library of Hogwarts. It is the place with the richest collection of books in the whole of Britain. Hermione's voice came with a little pride. I usually like to be in the library the most. Wanda on the side has not replied yet. As soon as Hermione's voice sounded, the warning of the librarian Madame Pince came to her ears. Keep your voice down. The library needs quiet. Hermione immediately shrank her head after hearing the familiar voice. She couldn't come to the library often, and basically she could only hear Madame Pince's roar every time. Some were directed at her, and some were directed at others. When Wanda saw Hermione shrinking her head, she couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. This made Hermione feel a little ashamed for no reason. I like to read some books about spells. What do you like to read? Hermione immediately changed the subject. At the same time, she set her sights on Harry, who was sitting at the desk not far away. At this moment, Harry lowered his head slightly, focusing on the books in front of him, and the feather pen on his right hand kept waving, recording his thoughts at the moment. Harry's changes not only reflected in his usual indifferent attitude towards people. He is more focused, studious, and even smarter in his studies than before. Professors of spells, transformation, and exotic plants all praise him highly. Even Snape, who has always been very harsh on Harry, finds it difficult to find fault with him in the potions class. In the end, he only picked out some insignificant faults, and sometimes even ignored Harry. It must be said that Harry has changed a lot, as if he has become a different person. At this moment, Wanda noticed Hermione's gaze and subconsciously joked, "Hermione, what do you think of Harry? When he was in Kamar-Taj before, he performed very well, but attracted many young witches." Hearing what Wanda said, Hermione's eyes widened, and she opened her mouth to say something. But then, Wanda patted Hermione on the shoulder, and suggested in a tone of an experienced person, "If you like Harry, you should express your intention as soon as possible. You don't know how popular Harry is in Kamar-Taj. Well, even his own tutor likes Harry very much. Ha 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 ha." Wanda's words instantly made Hermione a little angry. She wanted to make some excuses, but Wanda turned around and left, walking towards the depths of the library. This made Hermione open her mouth to say something, but she thought of Madame Pince's daily warnings and finally chose to shut up. However, when she turned her head to look at Harry, who was taking notes and studying magic, Wanda's words reappeared in her mind. It seems that there are many people in Hogwarts who like the current Harry. At this moment, Wanda has walked to the depths of the library. In the depths of the library, little wizards are basically not seen, because the books in this area are either very profound or involve black magic. If the little wizard is caught in the restricted area, the punishment of confinement is inevitable. However, she can have a borrowing note issued by Professor Credence. Basically, 99% of the books in the library can be borrowed at any time. Wanda has no obstacles in the so-called student restricted area. This is the largest and oldest library in the wizarding world. Although the library of Kamar-Taj is very advanced, Lockhart has also copied a large number of library materials. However, under the protection of magic, some of the more precious magic books are difficult to be copied, because the way to read magic books is not limited to text and pictures. Some books not only require a threshold to read, but also involve hearing, smell, and even spirit and soul. Purely reading with the eyes will only make you dizzy. This is not Muggle, but very magical. At this moment, Wanda felt the spiritual and magical fluctuations of every magic book on the surrounding bookshelves. She couldn't help but feel amazed. Compared with the Kamar-Taj Dream Library, the Hogwarts Library is more simple and more in line with her fantasy of the magic world. Maybe Kamar-Taj was established for a short time, and most of the books collected by Lockhart were looted or copied. Although there are many books, there are also many high quality ones. But compared with the Library of Hogwarts, which has been passed down for thousands of years, it is indeed a bit inferior. Wanda is looking around and preparing to find a book that she is interested in to take a look at first. Ziobe on the shoulder seemed to sense some familiar breath and patted Wanda's shoulder with his wings. Then he waved his wings and flew towards a bookshelf on the right. Wanda followed Ziobe and watched Ziobe land on the top of the bookshelf on the right. Ziobe waved his wings and wanted to take out a book on the top. However, as soon as the wings touched the book, a light grey light emerged. Ziobe not only failed to take it out successfully, but was bounced into the air. This made Ziobe a little angry, and he opened his mouth and showed her fangs and claws to the book. But maybe it's small, it looks cute. At least Wanda looked at Ziobe, who was angry at the moment, and covered her mouth and laughed secretly. Do you really think that the professor's borrowing slip is given for free? They are all magical. How can you get the book without the authority given by the professor? Unless someone did it on purpose. Wanda looked at Ziobe's fangs and claws, as if he was ready to open his mouth and swallow fire, to break the magic protection on the surface of the book. Quickly waved the magic wand to take out the book that attracted Ziobe. When she saw the book that attracted her fall into her master's hands, Ziobe flapped his wings and landed on Wanda's shoulders again. He flapped his wings and rubbed Wanda's cheek affectionately, as if urging his master to hurry up. This made Wanda quite curious. What kind of book could attract a dragon like Xiaobei? After a closer look, she found that the whole book was dark gold, and the cover was engraved with a lot of pictures of flying dragons. But what surprised Wanda was that she couldn't understand the title-like text on the cover. It was strange, and each word seemed like a pattern. It was completely different from the text that the mainstream learned now. It vaguely resembled the ancient Oriental characters that the mentor Lockhart had talked about before, but it was more complicated. However, just looking at the cover, she knew that this book should be closely related to dragons. What was written in the book? With such curiosity, Wanda turned the pages of the book, but what surprised her was that every page she turned was basically blank. There was no text, no pattern, just like a piece of white paper. However, she could clearly sense that her pet Xiaobei on her shoulder was staring at the book with great interest. It seemed that she was only looking at a piece of white paper, while Xiaobei seemed to have all the contents in his eyes. This strange feeling made Wanda feel uncomfortable for no reason, or more precisely, a sense of isolation. Just as she was about to cast magic to explore the root of everything. Suddenly, this is an epic of the rise and fall of dragons that a legendary wizard harvested from the dragon ruins 2000 years ago. The dragons thousands of years ago had wisdom no less than that of humans and were the masters of the world at that time. Credence's voice came from the side, instantly alerting Wanda. She had received special agent training from teacher Carter. Credence's previous care can be said to be the professor's help to his students. But for no reason, he suddenly appeared beside her and answered her questions. I have to say that the doubts are too great. When coincidences occur repeatedly, it is not a coincidence, but a deliberate design. This book is not for wizards, but for dragons. Credence continued to introduce it, seemingly unaware of Wanda's vigilance. However, if wizards want to read it, there is a very simple method. Credence stopped talking here. This made Wanda a little bit unable to hold back. Although she knew that this was a hook set by Credence, she still couldn't help asking, then Professor Credence, how do you read it specifically? Well, she is still young, and her inner curiosity is always strong. Credence smiled mysteriously. Then, under Wanda's gaze, he took out a pair of light green glasses. When the glasses just appeared in Credence's hands, Xiaobei, who was reading the book, instantly became angry. He clearly sensed that the glasses in this man's hand were made of dragon eyes. How could Xiaobei not be angry when he used the corpse of his own race to make a magic item? Such a blasphemous act. Roar. Woo woo woo. Xiaobei opened his mouth and began to roar, but just after he roared, Credence on the opposite side seemed to have anticipated Xiaobei's behavior. With a wave of his hand, the black mist rope immediately tied up Xiaobei, especially his big mouth that had just opened. This made Wanda's heart tighten slightly, and the pupils in her eyes quietly turned dark red, and a long crimson rope appeared between her hands. Persuade your pet well. This pair of glasses is not made by me. I snatched it from the goblin. Credence explained, and then continued to introduce, since it is difficult for wizards to detect directly, then we can borrow the eyes of the dragon to read. You try it. As he said, Credence handed the light green glasses in his hand to Wanda. Although Wanda was a little wary in her heart, she was brave. As the saying goes, a newborn calf is not afraid of a tiger. No matter how much Carter emphasized, she had her own ideas. After taking the glasses, she quickly cast her commonly used detective spells. After finding that there was no problem, she looked at Credence again, and did not put it on directly, but put the glasses in front of her eyes. Look at the book in front of her through the lenses. Under the effect of the light green dragon lens, the originally empty white page began to show constantly changing pictures and a large number of strange and pattern-like words. These words are very strange. Although I have never learned them before, I can clearly understand the general meaning. Mental induction. Under the effect of magic, these words and patterns are no longer just words, but a kind of spiritual power and spiritual fluctuations. As long as the spirit is active and reaches a certain level, you can read unimpeded. Thoughts quickly passed through Wanda's mind, and Wanda continued to immerse herself in the content of the book. The book is not thick, but but the amount of information contained in it is extremely huge. A large amount of pictures and information poured into her heart and were quickly sorted and absorbed by Wanda. It was also because of the content of the book that Wanda knew that the island of England, where the United Kingdom is located, was once the ancestral land of dragons, Dragon Island. Dragons once had a very glorious history, had a long lifespan, mastered the magical dragon magic, and once ruled the world. One after another, magnificent, tall, and magnificent dragon castles came into view, and some even soared in the sky. Wanda was subconsciously immersed in the glorious era of the dragon race. However, Wanda soon realized that there was a Professor Credence next to her, who was not sure whether he was a friend or an enemy. Despite this, Wanda, who came to her senses, could not help but focus her eyes on Xiaobei. Thinking back to the powerful dragon she had just seen in the book, she subconsciously showed a hint of disgust in her eyes. Why do I feel that the dragon recorded in the book and my pet are two different species? The dragon in the book not only has a powerful body, but can also cast magical dragon magic and even refine all kinds of magical items. And what about my dragon? It can only bite and spit fire at most. As if sensing the disgust of his master, Xiaobei couldn't help but lower his head, feeling a little depressed. Wanda, you can't apply the views you read in books to your pets. Credence reminded softly, times are constantly changing, and there will always be some races that prosper, and some races that decline. The once weak wizards and muggles now rule all living things on this planet. Dragons are already very good. Some races have even been wiped out. Hearing this, Wanda widened her eyes slightly, a little surprised. Wilderness, is that so exaggerated? Of course, have you heard of elves? Credence said calmly, I'm not talking about goblins, but those elves in fairy tales who are handsome men and beautiful women. After the end of the dragon era, it was the elves era, but now we can still see traces of dragons, and the elves have been completely wiped out. We can only hear about them in fairy tale books, and few people even know their true appearance. Why did the elves become wiped out? Why did the dragons, which were once so powerful, decline like this now? Although she didn't know why Credence told her so much, Wanda couldn't help asking. In response to Wanda's question, Credence was silent for a moment and said indifferently, survival of the fittest. Dragons rely on their strong bodies. Even if they have degraded a lot, they can still survive to this day. And the elves, although they have mastered advanced elven magic, their bodies are weak and they can't adapt at all. As for why they declined, at this point, Credence's eyes also flashed a trace of confusion and uncertainty. There are many kinds of sayings circulating in the wizarding world, but the more mainstream one is that there is a consciousness that transcends everything in the world. It has always maintained a balance and will not allow any race to control the world all the time. At this point, Credence's expression flashed a trace of loneliness, and his voice suddenly lowered. If Wanda hadn't had sharp ears, she might not have heard it at all. Even, it's a wizard. But Credence quickly came back to his senses, staring at Wanda opposite him, with a gentle smile on his face. Wanda, there is something I want to ask you for a favor. Chapter 538 Hermione, Hogwarts must be as good as Kamar-Taj. Hogwarts, Forbidden Forest. Shap, shap, shap. A rustling sound came from the dense jungle. In the Forbidden Forest, the trees were tall and connected with the crowns. The sun shone through the gaps in the leaves, casting spots of light. Ian, Wanda and the other four, as well as Harry's trio, a group of 7 people walked through the woods, sometimes stepping on grass and sometimes crossing mossy stones. Compared with the calmness of Ian, Wanda and the other four, Harry's indifferent expression was mixed with vigilance. He carefully observed the surrounding environment and the possible dangers. Hermione and Ron behind him looked very nervous. They had been to the Forbidden Forest before, but they only ventured into the periphery. This was already the depths of the Forbidden Forest. Mysterious and dangerous. This is the synonym for the depths of the Forbidden Forest. The further you go in, the denser the trees, the less sunlight, and the very humid the air. From time to time, you can see vines and tree roots entangled together. If you walk in carelessly, you will have to spend a lot of effort to find a way out, just like a huge maze. How can they not be vigilant when they are only in the 3rd grade? I suddenly regret coming here. Ron said in a worried tone. You said this was originally Wanda's assignment. Why didn't Professor Credence come here himself, but let Harry come here instead? In response to Ron's question, Hermione stretched out her hand to move the branches in front of her and said, it was originally called Harry. It has nothing to do with us. We wanted to come here on our own. Maybe Professor Credence didn't consider us at all. He wanted to test Harry's ability. Hermione's tone became a little low when she said the last part. It was still the same problem. Harry, who used to play very well with them, suddenly became a little indifferent. Although he still wouldn't refuse them, it always felt like there was an extra layer of isolation. Professor McGonagall said it was the influence of black magic, but to them, it was just that their best friend was sick, but he couldn't be cured. Suddenly, crack, crack. A lot of rustling sounds came from all directions, instantly making Hermione's nerves tense. Looking at the dense bushes around, and the sparse and dim light blocked by tall trees, Hermione felt a little cold on her back. Harry, Wanda, there is danger approaching. Hermione pointed her wand at her throat and cast a voice-enhancing spell to warn everyone loudly. However, Wanda, Ian and the other 4 people who were walking in the front, including Harry, did not seem to be too nervous. Harry, do you want to compete this time? Remy's hearty voice suddenly sounded. He was a little surprised that Harry joined their team to travel, not to study dragons, but he did not reject it. The reason was simple. His mentor thought highly of Harry. In his heart, he secretly regarded him as a member of Kamar-Taj, and he was a student in the first echelon like himself. Not to mention that this time Professor Credence also took out some interesting and practical goblin treasures and gave them to them. Okay, let's see who hunts the most. If I win, I want a practical offensive magic spell. Harry Potter agreed without hesitation and put forward a condition of his own. Okay, if I win, I also want a bottle of the potion that you made last time to increase your physical fitness. Remy also quickly followed up with his own conditions. At the same time, Ian also said that he wanted to participate in this hunting competition. Why didn't the 2 girls, Vera and Wanda, join in? It seemed that they left the battle to the 3 wizards. Well, as for Ron, he didn't directly ask to join because he was a little scared. Hermione, who was standing by, clearly saw huge black spiders coming from all directions and surrounding them. These spiders were much larger than ordinary spiders. Their bodies were black spheres, and their surfaces were covered with fine hairs. Their eyes were green, and they had a pair of huge fangs, or claws, in their mouths. These fangs would knock from time to time. The sound of clicking was made by the collision of their claws. However, what made Hermione and Ron feel the most strange was that these spiders actually had 8 eyes. 8-eyed giant spiders. 3x level magical creatures, huge in size, ferocious by nature, and gregarious. In the group state, the danger level reached 5x level, comparable to fire dragons, or even stronger. Click, click. The 8-eyed spider's fangs kept knocking, and the sound of snapping came from all directions. Ron was frightened, and his legs went weak. He was afraid of spiders to begin with, and this time he saw so many of them. Hermione began to wave her wand. Petrified. Hard to stop. Burning flames. The wand was waved, and red spell beams hit the black body of the giant spider opposite. Bang, bang, bang. The black spider's body froze and flew backwards. However, the 8-eyed giant spiders behind desperately rushed up. Even though Hermione waved her wand and released a large amount of flames, as a large number of spiders spewed spider silk. Under the vast amount of spider silk, even though the flames burned desperately, they were soon extinguished. Hermione looked at the giant spiders getting closer and closer, and suppressed the fear in her heart. She kept waving her wand, and killing and forcing back the nearest 8-eyed spiders. The attacks of these spiders were very organized. They seemed to have made a plan in advance, constantly surrounding and testing. It seemed that they found that, although Hermione's attack was continuous, the force was not as strong as expected. The other positions brought them a great sense of crisis. As if they had found some weaknesses, they attacked Hermione frantically. As the spiders got closer and closer, Ron's legs became a little weak, and Hermione became more and more nervous, waving her wand and chanting spells. Wanda, Ian, Remy, Vera and Harry were quietly paying attention to the spiders surrounding them. They did not attack, but they did not hide their momentum at all. What are they waiting for? As if sensing the danger brought by the prey, more and more spiders surrounded Ian, Wanda and others. But they did not attack, and seemed to be worried about something. Harry, hurry up, these spiders almost bit me just now. Ron howled loudly, reminding Harry to support them quickly. After hearing this, Harry looked sideways, a little helpless. He was still ready to wait for more spiders, to catch them all in one net. As a result, Harry couldn't refuse his friend's call for help. Even though he was influenced by Voldemort, his original kindness, justice and friendship still influenced him. Corrosion arrow. With the rapid sound of the spell, the wand in his hand moved rapidly in the air. In an instant, a large amount of dark green liquid, like arrows, appeared above Harry's head. A large number of tiny bubbles appeared on the surface of these liquids, and a gurgling sound could be heard faintly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The wand gently moved along Harry's slender arm in the direction of Ron and Hermione. In an instant, a large number of corrosion arrows seemed to receive orders and shot at the spiders. The arrows were like bullets. With a whoosh, the spider in the front was pierced and continued to attack the spider group behind. The wounds of the pierced spiders began to expand, as if they were corroded. At the same time, the spiders began to tremble constantly and stopped abruptly after 2 or 3 seconds, as if they had died of poisoning. The same happened to every spider that was hit by the corrosion arrow. In the blink of an eye, most of the spiders that were rushing towards Ron and Hermione died. Hermione's eyes widened as she looked at the large number of black spider corpses in front of her, and Ron was even more terrified. It seemed that she had never expected that her good friend could kill so many 8-eyed giant spiders with just a magic. Harry, when did you become so powerful? Ron asked subconsciously. Remy, who was standing by, seemed unwilling to lag behind after seeing this. He looked at the 8-eyed giant spiders in front of him with a slight smile on his face. Then, he gently raised his wand, poured magic into it, and slid it slightly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Large streams of purple flames gushed out and quickly wrapped around Remy's body, as if he was wearing a purple flame armor. Feeling the powerful force coming from his body, Remy couldn't help licking his lips and showing a cruel smile to the black spider opposite him. Trample, trample, trample. Remy, wearing purple flame armor, rushed towards the spider quickly. Compared with long-range attacks, he, who was learning from instructor Steve, preferred the pleasure of hitting the flesh with fists. Boom. With a punch, the hot purple flame gushed out, like a pillar of fire, rushing directly to the end along a straight line. Submerged in the flames, the 8-eyed giant spiders quickly burned to ashes. Although the purple flame is not as good as the hellfire and the fierce fire, it is many times more powerful than ordinary flames. And its characteristics are not only high temperature, but also difficult to erase like oil, and most importantly, it is very easy to spread. Even if a spark drops on the spider, it will quickly expand and incinerate. This is no worse than the fierce fire. With Remy holding the purple flame shield in his left hand, and waving the purple flame battle axe in his right hand, he rushed into the depths where the 8-eyed spiders lived. The battle axe swept, the flames exploded, and large areas of 8-eyed spiders were quickly burned to ashes. Remy, remember to leave some live 8-eyed giant spiders. The venom on them is a good material. Vera, who was not far away, could not help but remind loudly. She was good at making potions, so she naturally knew the value and preciousness of the 8-eyed spider's venom. When she first saw so many 8-eyed spiders, she was very excited and planned to catch more and bring them back to Kamar-Taj to use them as the source of venom in the future. To be honest, she felt a little distressed when she saw so many 8-eyed giant spiders being killed, but she did not stop them. After all, mercy is not in her dictionary. However, Harry's giant spider died, and the last venom was retained. Remy's side was too extreme. All of them were burned to ashes, leaving only some ashes. This made Vera a little bit unbearable. After hearing this, Ian, who was standing by, silently changed the magic he was about to release. Following Ian, he raised the wand in his hand high, and outlined a simple and mysterious trajectory in the air. In an instant, dark clouds gathered in the sky, and the sound of thunder roared continuously. Crackling, crackling. The sound of thunder roared continuously, and deep blue arcs of electricity flashed everywhere in the dark clouds. Boom, With a roar, lightning flashed like rain, passing through branches and leaves, and fell into the black spiders below one after another. The bright lightning hit the black shell of the spider, and the spider screamed shrilly, and began to tremble. Blue arcs continued to appear on the surface of the body, and the 8 legs seemed to be taken away by electricity, kneeling on the ground and shaking constantly. Then, coma. Well, after hearing Vera's reminder to Remy, the carefully and immediately knew Vera's idea. So he changed the thunder spell, not to hurt life, but to paralyze these 8-eyed giant spiders, making them unable to move. Seeing a large number of 8-eyed giant spiders kneeling on the ground trembling all over, motionless. After Wanda saw it, the magic power silently operated in her body, and the black pupils turned dark red in an instant. Gently waving her hand, a strange wave enveloped these spiders paralyzed by thunder. The next moment, just like using an eraser to erase pencil writing, the paralyzed 8-eyed giant spiders disappeared one by one, leaving behind the crushed grass. Harry used black magic to kill. Remy used purple flames to eliminate the 8-eyed giant spiders, and Ian and Wanda cooperated to make the 8-eyed spiders disappear one by one. Hermione and Ron, who were nervous before, were shocked at this time. They were already very surprised that Harry suddenly became so powerful. And Remy's bravery in the purple flame armor and rushing into the 8-eyed spider group made them stunned. It must be said that everything exceeded their imagination. Comparing it with their own performance just now, they wanted to cry, but had no tears, and even felt a little ashamed. The other party was only a few years older than them, but he was so powerful, just like the professor in the school. And what about me? Thinking of this, Ron lowered his head silently, and Hermione took a deep breath in her heart, ready to go back to school and soak in the library and treat the professor's office as her home. I don't believe that I can't beat these students of Kamar-Taj. Well, at least Harry's performance is not worse than Th's. Hermione, who has a strong sense of school honor, thought unwillingly. As Harry cast powerful attack magic and even black magic one by one, a large number of 8-eyed giant beads died. And Remy controlled the flames, covering the surroundings, burning the 8-eyed spiders one by one to ashes. He heard Vera's reminder, but he didn't want to lose the game, and he hadn't yet reached the point of being able to control the purple flames with ease. At most, he could barely keep some bodies. But when he really exerted his strength, it was still easy to burn to ashes. But it didn't matter. Ian cooperated with Wanda to collect the 8-eyed spiders. He continued to kill them with confidence. With a swing of his right fist, the flames spewed out, and a large number of 8-eyed giant spiders were stained with purple flames. They screamed and wanted to escape, but in the end they would only run to death with purple flames and other spiders. As long as they were stained with a spark, they would not die, but they would lose a layer of skin. Purple flames, that's how domineering. Shap, shap, shap. The death of large numbers of Acromanthus spiders seemed to scare the remaining surviving Acromanthus spiders, who began to retreat and flee. Waving their 8 legs, the Acromanthus spiders ran through the jungle, accompanied by rustling sounds, and fled quickly in all directions. Remy looked at the fleeing Acromanthus spiders, and the purple flames on their bodies gradually shrank, and he returned to normal. Harry, who was standing by, also put down his wand and walked towards Wanda's location with Hermione and Ron. At this moment, Wanda was discussing something with Vera with a smile. She had just counted the number of captured and surviving Acromanthus spiders and found that the number was as high as 100. This made Wanda feel very happy. Well, it didn't take much effort to earn a lot of gold galleons. How could she not be happy? After bringing these Acromanthus spiders back to Kamar-Taj, they could also exchange for some rewards. After hearing the approximate number, Vera also smiled, and she could consider letting go and experimenting with venom in the future. A steady supply of venom. Very good, very good. Remy, I won. Harry said lightly, but a trace of joy still flashed across his face. He had been using large-scale black magic just now, so the number of people killed was naturally greater. Although Remy's purple fireworks were also very domineering, and they achieved the effect of group attack by virtue of their highly contagious effect, but the number was still a little behind him. As for Ian, it's better not to say anything. He lost this time. Okay, let's compete again next time, Harry. Remy admitted readily, and at the same time, made the next appointment. Seeing Harry nodded and agreed, Remy smiled and took out a grey ball of light, and threw it to Harry. The ball of light was not big, and could be held in one hand. There was a lot of grey mist swimming inside. Feeling the breath of decay emitted by the grey ball of light, Harry's expression moved, and he silently put it back into the space extension bag. At the same time, Ian also took out a dark red spell light ball, and handed it to Harry. After seeing this, Remy continued, "Now let's go and see the king of these 8-eyed giant spiders. The book says that all 8-eyed giant spiders obey the orders of the king. Controlling the king is equivalent to controlling all 8-eyed giant spiders. Then, it will be time to truly reap the rewards." Chapter 539. World-destroying crisis. Alien breath. New world. Kamar-Taj. Secret space. Dap. 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 The slender fingers tapped lightly on the wooden table, making a tapping sound. A dark golden book, half turned over, was placed on the desk. It was vaguely visible that a large number of dragons were swimming on the cover. A large number of strange words also appeared on the white page on the front. These words seemed to be constantly changing, forming a linear pattern. If Wanda saw it here, she would be very surprised. This book is the dragon epic she had seen before, and the white pages that were originally in her eyes now appeared a large number of dragon words. She can only receive the information of the book through the magic treasure, made of dragon eyes. Salazar, from the book, the strength of the dragon clan is much stronger than the current wizards. They all failed, and are now reduced to magic materials. Will your efforts be effective? A transparent figure floated next to the solid wood desk. The gloomy face, with a lot of black basilisk patterns on the dark green wizard robe, highlights his gloomy temperament. His image is simply a living synonym for a dark wizard, and his appearance will make any Hogwarts student exclaim, because they see his portrait in the hall, in the corridor, and even in the classroom every day. He is Salazar Slytherin, one of the 4 founders of Hogwarts. Facing Lockhart's question, Slytherin said calmly, "History has always been a little girl who can be dressed up by anyone." The book only mentions how powerful the dragon clan was, and how many heroes it had. He will not record how many enemies the dragons had, how chaotic they were internally, and how familiar their system was. Salazar said in a cold tone, mixed with a hint of disdain. Gryffindor and I have analyzed the dragons as the former masters and current materials. Their failures are ultimately due to their pride in their decadent, backward, and rigid population system. Faced with the mysterious world consciousness, they are so proud that they think they can easily defeat it and be superior to the entire world. Even the top dragon kings think they can influence it, manipulate it, and control it. Then Salazar, are you sure that the remaining means can't deal with the world consciousness? Lockhart interrupted and asked, not understanding what Salazar said. Salazar was silent for a moment after hearing it, and his voice was low and his tone was no longer as sure as before. Compared with the dragons, we are definitely different in all aspects, but the only thing is that we know ourselves. Salazar said this. His voice was a little low and a little lonely. I, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, and Hufflepuff, have never thought of confronting the world consciousness, let alone overriding it. Because we know that it is basically impossible to succeed. Born in the world, used in the world, no matter how magical the magic is, it is ultimately within the scope of the world. We have repeatedly analyzed, reviewed, and discussed, but we have never seen the possibility of defeating the world consciousness. But, the word "but" made Slytherin's originally lonely voice a little complicated. This complexity lies in the fact that he doesn't know whether his choice is correct, revealing his confusion about the future. We believe that wizard civilization will decline, but it will never die directly like the elves. What we have to do is to leave behind the heritage of wizards, the heritage of magic, and the heritage of Hogwarts. When civilization declines, we will turn into a kind of fire and ignite a strong flame for wizard civilization again. When talking about the fire, Salazar's tone became a little excited. It seems that he is excited from the bottom of his heart about his behavior. Although Lockhart heard the purpose of the 4 founders of Hogwarts again, he couldn't help but feel a kind of admiration in his heart. This admiration comes from their dedication to wizards, like Salazar voluntarily splitting the Horcrux, which has been aged for thousands of years. The so-called resurrection is not for his own ambition, but to continue the fire of civilization. Such a noble and great act, how can people not admire it? Then Salazar, can you let me meet the other 3 adult founders? I admire your ideas very much. Facing Lockhart's praise, no, it should be said that he was spying on him. Even though his body was transparent, he could still clearly see that he curled his lips. Don't dream, Lockhart. I won't tell you where Gryffindor and the others are sleeping. I can follow you alone. Unless I see the possibility of truly surviving this disaster, I will not reveal the power we left to survive the destruction of civilization. Well, if Hogwarts Castle was not the legacy of Salazar Slytherin's family, Salazar would not have chosen to sleep in Hogwarts. He would not have been met by Lockhart. Salazar chose to sleep in order to pass on the wizard civilization, so the other 3 founders also chose to sleep. And just as Slytherin left behind the power of the basilisk, the other founders naturally had some of their own means and kept them. This was a great temptation for Lockhart. Hearing Salazar's firm tone, Lockhart laughed and said, I told you about the existence of the new world. As long as we can stabilize in the new world, the crisis of the destruction of wizard civilization will not exist. As for the new world, although I have just gained a foothold, now is the time to need strength. Yes, as long as I can become the supreme sorcerer of Kamar-Taj, the so-called crisis will no longer exist. Lockhart thought silently in his heart. Slytherin quietly stepped back a few steps and said in a vigilant voice, I understand what you mean, Lockhart. However, I have not been to the new world, and I don't know if there is a crisis in the new world. What if there is a crisis in the new world that is enough to destroy the entire wizard civilization? No one can say for sure. I can't play a gambling game with you with Hogwarts' accumulation of thousands of years. Maybe. You must show me a clear possibility. At this point, Slater's voice couldn't help but rise, and his tone revealed a firmness that would never back down. It seemed that, if Lockhart couldn't give him the possibility or result he wanted to see, he would not agree to any of Lockhart's conditions. Seeing that his attempt was deadlocked again, Lockhart couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Sure enough, it was not so easy to take out the last power of Hogwarts. And the Marvel world, which faces a world-destroying crisis almost once a year, if Slytherin saw it. I'm afraid this guy's ready to give up the idea of entering the new world at the first time. Continue to return to the Harry Potter world, indulge in Hogwarts, and continue to prepare the so-called wizard fire plan. To be honest, if it was the original Slytherin, with the character of the Dark Wizard, Lockhart was confident that he could convince the other party. But the one in front of him was Salazar, a Horcrux that Slytherin specially split. He had only one mission, which was to pass on magic, and pass on Hogwarts. Therefore, his determination was beyond the imagination of ordinary people. Even if Lockhart forced him, the other party would rather self-destruct than let Lockhart succeed in his conspiracy. Salazar, when are you going to revive? You need resources. I can prepare them all for you. The resurrection ceremony can be started at any time. After his thoughts were seen through, Lockhart changed the subject and said, I believe that your strength will quickly return to the peak. Yes, as long as you are resurrected, your soul will be complete. At that time, although the mission is important, it will not be so extreme. The Horcrux itself is a magic that requires extreme emotions to be split. Voldemort chose death, while Slytherin chose the mission of inheriting wizard civilization. Not for the time being. Slytherin replied immediately. Then, it seemed that he felt that he had something to ask of Lockhart after all, and it was not good to refuse directly just now, so he opened his mouth to explain. I will revive when I arrive in the new world. The state of resurrection is a state where the soul is highly interactive with the world and can be further connected with the world consciousness. At that time, I can help you check some details of the new world. Well, let's see if we can use the ritual to peek into the fate of the new world. If the crisis faced by the new world in the future is stronger than the world we are in, it's better to go to bed and go back to Hogwarts. After all, my mission is important. Of course, another reason is that with the help of the resurrection ritual, the soul can interact with the world consciousness and cleanse the aura of the other world. As a top wizard who once specialized in world consciousness, Slytherin thought he had a better understanding of world consciousness. Although the world consciousness does not have reason like wizards, it is still very sensitive to dangerous things, and it can only be said to be overly sensitive. It will do its best to fight back against anything that threatens itself. Just like an animal, or like a child. Sensitive, suspicious, and possessing great power. If this is the case in my own world, then the new world should not be much worse. Slytherin does not believe that the new world will not have no reaction to things from other worlds. So he had to be the first to cleanse the aura of the other world. This also made him curious. Lockhart should have traveled through it repeatedly, and he had a firm foothold in the new world. Wasn't he targeted by the world consciousness? How did Lockhart do it, and even brought his students into the new world? Slytherin was a little curious. This was also the reason why he had a certain confidence in Lockhart. Otherwise, why did he help Lockhart make a deal with Dumbledore and come to Kamar-Taj himself? Lockhart, what do you think of the news from Hogwarts? Someone has taken a fancy to you. Someone has taken a fancy to your beloved. After briefly explaining the reason for the delayed resurrection, Slytherin turned the topic to Lockhart. Coming to Kamar-Taj and communicating with Lockhart about world consciousness, he was also very clear about the strength of Kamar-Taj and Lockhart's attitude towards students. How to say it? Slytherin clearly sensed that Lockhart was doing his best to accumulate his strength. He even put his mind on Hogwarts and the inheritance of people like himself. For his students, he is even more attentive. With top teachers as tutors and precious resources, he basically meets all requests. In order to let the wizards get familiar with the power of dreams in advance, Lockhart even gave the rights of the dream world to Ian Wander, and others in turn. Help them get familiar with it, and even grow further, and improve their strength. It can be said that being a teacher to the extent of Lockhart is really enough. They are still students whose treatment is envied by all wizards, and even unimaginable. However, Lockhart paid such a price, and I'm afraid that the tasks these students will undertake in the future will not be easy. The thought flashed through his mind, and Slytherin still maintained his original smile, as if he was watching Lockhart's good show. And Lockhart's face darkened, and he seemed a little uncomfortable. Don't worry, I will remember this favor of Hogwarts. It won't be so easy for him to get away this time. Hogwarts, deep in the Forbidden Forest. Deep in the Forbidden Forest, the grass is dense and the trees are overgrown, and even the bright sunlight will be blocked by the dense branches and leaves. Dim and humid are eternal topics. In a depression deep inside, caves of all sizes were densely dotted inside. What made people feel extremely uncomfortable was that there were densely packed 8-eyed spiders wandering back and forth everywhere. Many 8-eyed giant pigs ran into the caves, but more spiders also ran into the depression. Their 8 legs waved continuously, very fast, and they seemed hurried in their impatience. They had to run faster. With so many companions, who wouldn't be worried and afraid, the timid ones all ran back to the caves, and nestled in the darkness that they were most familiar with and the safest. Snap, snap, hiss, hiss, hiss. More and more 8-eyed giant spiders ran back to the depression. The fangs on the mouths of the 8-eyed giant spiders kept colliding and making hissing sounds, as if conveying some information. Not long after, a huge 8-eyed giant spider walked out of the largest cave. This spider was larger and more conspicuous than the surrounding 8-eyed giant pigs. When the other spiders saw it, they all pressed their bodies to the ground to show their submission. This is the king of the 8-eyed giant spiders, or rather, their common father, Aragog. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Don't worry, children, this is home, a safe place. Hiss, hiss, hiss. There are a lot of companions here, including your brothers and sisters. Aragog hissed, as if to comfort these panicked 8-eyed giant spiders. Hiss, hiss, hiss. We won't let those damn wizards go. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Don't be afraid, we are the kings in this forest, and everything is our prey. Be brave. Aragog encouraged his children to be brave. What the tribe needs to grow is brave warriors, not cowardly wastes. However, he did not notice that in a shadowy position outside the depression, there were several figures swaying. What is needed is brave warriors, not cowardly wastes. Vera, you are amazing. You found their nest so easily. Wanda stared at Aragog in the center of the depression and praised Vera. It's easy. Just add a few more drops of tracking potion to these spiders. How can we not find their nest? Vera said with a smile, as if she enjoyed Wanda's praise. Are you going to kill all these 8-eyed spiders? Hermione beside her lowered her voice, but her words revealed reluctance, as if she had noticed the attitude behind her. Without waiting for Vera to reply, Wanda on the side spoke first, and said with a smile, of course not, Hermione. We just asked him to move. It's just that, if some spiders don't want to move, for the safety of this forest, we still have to do some cleaning work. At this point, Wanda's tone became cold. Hermione was not stupid, so she naturally understood the meaning behind Wanda's words. She turned around to get Harry's support, but when she saw Harry's cold and even approving eyes, her throat seemed to be blocked. She didn't know what to say, so she could only step back and stop talking. Let's do it. The 8-eyed spiders are almost back. The remaining 3 or 2 are unnecessary, Harry said. He was in a very good mood after receiving 2 practical spells, so he was not opposed to helping Kamar-Taj. Petrify all. After seeing Remy nod his head and agree, Harry waved his wand and cast a spell. Of course, he did not cast a deadly black magic, but a petrification spell. After all, he was helping the wizards of Kamar-Taj to capture these 8-eyed giant spiders. Purple flame cage. At the same time, Remy also began to wave his wand, and a large piece of purple flame gushed out and fell on the ground. As if there was a spiritual duty, it automatically followed a certain track on the ground and burned all the way. Soon, a purple flame circle was built around the depression. At the moment, when the purple flame circle was formed, slender purple flames began to emerge suddenly and surrounded the fire circle. In less than 10 seconds, a cage formed by purple flames emerged. Harry, who was standing by, silently waved his wand again after seeing this and changed a spell. A large amount of dark green gas continued to gush out as the magic was waved, flowing into the flame cage. The 8-eyed giant spiders trapped in the cage were originally panicked by the scorching flames and ran around everywhere, and some even hid in the cave. But then, handsome and considerate, entering the depression, they just touched lightly, and they trembled all over and became weak. It took only 5 or 6 seconds, and they were motionless, as if dead. Seeing this scene, Ian, who was originally ready to take action, silently retracted his wand. Now 2 people are enough for this scene. At this moment, the 8-eyed giant spider king Aragog looked at the surrounding flame cages and the children who were lying on the ground motionless, angry, furious, and even made it a little crazy. These are all its children. This group of damn wizards want to wipe out their entire tribe in one fell swoop. Then from Aragog's mouth, the original human voice, the voice revealed anger and madness. Powerful dark wizard, I have completed what you asked me to do. These damn little wizards are here. Kill them. Powerful dark wizard. I want them to be buried with my child. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 540, Voldemort's Pain Point. Hiss, hiss, hiss. A large number of 8-eyed giant spiders, burned by the hot purple flames, let out a shrill howl. Some accidentally inhaled the dark green sleeping poison mist, and their bodies kept twitching, but soon fell into a deep sleep. The king of the 8-eyed giant spiders, Aragog, saw that his child was in such a miserable state, and he was furious. Dark wizard, powerful black wizard, I have done what you said. Damn it, why don't you come out? Vile wizard. Aragog kept shouting, wanting the black wizard who had a deal with him to appear quickly and minimize the death of his child. However, despite his shouting, the other party did not move, which made Aragog very angry. The untrustworthy wizard, the damn wizard, the soul should fall into the dark abyss and bear the unchanging black and evil punishment for 10,000 years. As Aragog's shouting became more and more angry, the so-called black wizard still did not appear. However, Wanda, Harry, Remy and others outside began to be alert. Perception light. Detection ripple. Fate search. Life detection. Almost immediately after hearing Aragog's call, Ian, Remy, and Harry all cast the detection thunder spell. Except for Ron, who was a little panicked. Even Hermione began to cast spells. trying to find possible enemies around. However, a large number of detection spells continued to cover the surroundings, and even Wanda used the mysterious destiny magic, but still no results. It seemed that Aragog, the king of the eight-eyed spiders, was lying. Any results? Ian asked everyone, except for this group of eight-eyed giant spiders. There are no other energy fluctuations or other auras around. In response to Ian's inquiry, everyone shook their heads. Could Aragog be lying? Hermione on the side speculated. He wants us to be afraid of being attacked and choose to leave. After all, it is almost extinct. Hermione said a possible result, and everyone fell silent. Unless the enemy is too powerful and completely avoids their spells, there is only this explanation. Be alert and guard against possible sneak attacks. Ian ordered everyone directly as the captain. Yes, he was Lockhart's first student and also belonged to the first echelon of Kamar-Taj. At this moment, no one would refuse to accept him as the captain, because the captain not only means power, but also responsibility. If anything happens, the captain bears all the responsibility. After hearing Ian's face, almost at the same time, Wanda, Remy, and Vera formed a circle and guarded the surroundings. The wand in his hand was raised, and a large amount of magic power was poured into it. The tip of the wand emitted a faint red light and strong pressure. Harry could clearly sense that the original aura of the four people suddenly turned into a whole, as if one of them took action, and the others would take action one after another. The keen combat intuition instantly made him feel great pressure. At the same time, Hermione and Ron on the side were extremely surprised, because the performance of the four people seemed not to be students like them, but auras who had been trained for many years. Ron, raise your wand, and be alert to your surroundings. Seeing Ron still panicking, Ming Ming reminded him in a low voice. She really wanted to cover her face and find a crack in the ground to crawl into for Ron's performance. Compared with Wanda and the others, it was really embarrassing. Hearing Hermione's urging, Ron, who was stretching his head to observe where there might be enemies around, suddenly came to his senses. He walked to the back and raised the wand in his hand, as if he wanted to imitate Wanda and the others' performance. However, it felt like learning to walk by imitating others. Looking at Ron, who turned his head to the left, then to the right, and even sometimes shrank his head, Hermione was like seeing a frightened squirrel. She even felt that Ron would run away immediately when he encountered danger. Harry! Hermione shouted helplessly. Hearing this, Harry walked to Hermione's side and helped her deal with the unknown enemy. Seeing Harry coming, Ron seemed to have found his backbone. He immediately trotted to the side and chirped, Harry, is the enemy a dark wizard? The kind that can cast the unforgivable curse? Ron's chirping voice made Harry frown. Seeing this, Hermione pulled Ron to her side in a bad mood and began to speak. In any case, the performance cannot be too bad. At least it cannot embarrass Hogwarts in front of the students of Kamar-Taj. Fortunately, they have Harry Potter. At this moment, Wanda, Ian and others did not focus on Hermione and others. The three of them connected their breath, focused their minds, and took themselves as the center. The mental power slowly expanded outward, carefully analyzing everything they perceived, not letting go of a single blade of grass or a single tree. Although their faces were calm, they held the wands tightly in their hands and moved slowly. The majestic magic power was suppressed in the wand body, as if waiting for a suitable time to release it with all their strength. Damn dark wizard, I curse you. Your soul will fall into hell and enjoy the eternal burning of hellfire. Always awake, forever in pain, forever suffering the torture of living a life worse than death. The king of the eight-eyed giant spiders, Aragog, cursed. Almost all of his children are dying, and the bastard who keeps saying that he will help them hunt wizards has not yet made a move. However, Avada Kedavra, a dark green death beam suddenly appeared and hit the cursing Aragog. In an instant, Aragog fell to the ground and died silently. At some point, a person wearing a dark green wizard robe also appeared. He looked like a young wizard, with a slender figure and a handsome face, but he revealed an evil spirit, as if death and killing had always been around him. Playing with the purple wand in his hand, the Dark Lord Voldemort looked at the dead king of the eight-eyed giant spider, Aragog, with a playful look. He seemed to care nothing about Wanda and the others behind him. He was originally planning to spare his life and let him disrupt Hogwarts in the future. Unfortunately, he said something he shouldn't have said without restraint. Yes, Voldemort didn't care about the previous curses, but the last word of hellfire hit his sore spot. Thinking of another self, Tom Skeleton stayed with flames all over his body, and the threat of the flames to his soul. Voldemort wanted to tear him into pieces, and at the same time, he was filled with deep fear. As for this ugly spider, damn it. You know who? Voldemort. Hermione shouted in surprise, and Ian called out the other party's real name vigilantly. Kamar-Taj's intelligence system has a very clear image of Voldemort. There is no doubt that the other party is the Dark Lord Voldemort. Chapter 541 Voldemort and Grindelwald at Hogwarts. Ants are still so arrogant, looking for death. Voldemort said disdainfully, while looking at the dying Aragog. Then, he turned around and set his sights on the extremely vigilant Iron Wanda, and of course Harry Potter. Harry, I never thought I would meet you again. Voldemort's devilish low voice seemed like a moan coming from the depths of hell. Fate really took care of me, and almost all the enemies have come. At this point, Voldemort licked his lips and revealed an evil, murderous smile. I believe Lockhart and Dumbledore will feel heartbroken if I kill you. Hearing Voldemort's threatening words, Iron Wanda and Harry did not panic at all, but just silently watched the other party's wand raised high, and the magic power was poured into it. Alert, nervous, and excited. Yes, Voldemort read excitement from their state. There was no fear, but some excitement, and a kind of eagerness to try. Including Harry, the same is true. The only ones with a fearful aura were the little witch at the side and a pure-blood traitor from the Weasley family. Voldemort, if you attack us today, we will regard it as your declaration of war against Kamar-Taj and Hogwarts. Our Headmaster Lockhart and Headmaster Dumbledore will do their best to make you pay the price. Ian said loudly. As the captain of this temporary team, his primary responsibility is not to challenge, but to protect the lives and safety of everyone. Even if he wants to take this opportunity to challenge the Dark Lord, the idea of strength is suppressed in his heart. You are so ignorant. Voldemort laughed a little, and there seemed to be a hint of anger in his laughter. It seems that even these little wizards look down on him. How can he not feel ashamed? Avada Kedavra. Without hesitation, he shot a face lock directly. He was ready to kill someone first, and teach these little wizards a lesson. Let them know what it means, that the strong cannot be insulted. But, the moment the dark green killing curse appeared, Wanda reacted and her eyes turned dark red. The four people worked together, and in an instant, a dark red field covered everyone. The figure became somewhat transparent and illusory. Bang! The dark green killing curse shot towards Ian and others, but the death curse just touched the area where Wanda and others were. Almost instantly, everyone's figures disappeared along with the red field, and the dark green killing curse directly hit the ground, where everyone was originally. A small but bottomless pit appeared on the ground, and Voldemort's face became a little ugly. Some wizard apprentices who were originally thought to be easy to catch actually avoided his attack. It must be said that this is a slap in the face. Shame. With a flash of thought, Voldemort set his sights on the valley, where the eight-eyed giant spider was. The purple flame ball cage still existed, and a large number of eight-eyed giant spiders were either burned to ashes, or paralyzed by inhaling poisonous fog. Motionless, Wanda and the others appeared in the center of the depression, waving their wands to imprison the purple flame cage, and exerting their protective barrier. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Remy waved his wand, and quietly, the four-man team took the lead, and the purple flame expanded instantly, constantly spewing out in all directions. It quickly spread towards Voldemort's position, trying to engulf him. Looking at the approaching purple flame, Voldemort seemed to think of something. Anger appeared on his face, and the majestic magic power roared out. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The blood-red mist surged from behind, covering the surrounding grass and trees. Almost instantly, accompanied by a buzzing sound, everything turned into a wasteland. It was impossible to see the original jungle scenery here. The red mist spread all around, and large areas of grass and trees were engulfed and turned into wasteland. At the same time, the purple flame approached forward, and the blood-red mist was not to be outdone. It rushed directly towards the purple sea of fire. Whoosh, whoosh, buzz, 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 buzz. The hot flames caused the air to whistle, and a mixed humming sound came from the blood-colored mist. When the flames and the mist collided with each other, the purple flames seemed to have obtained some fuel, and they surged wildly. They directly pushed back a large part of the blood-red mist. However, it was visible to the naked eye that the purple flames were approaching slower and slower, as if the blood-red mist had adapted. He began to counterattack, and began to devour the flames. Damn, these insects are too adaptable. They actually began to devour my purple flames. Remy couldn't help but say in the depression. Yes, the four of them could clearly sense the so-called blood-red mist together, which was actually composed of tiny blood-red insects. Originally, when the two collided, Remy's purple flames easily burned these blood-red insects. However, these insects seemed to be stimulated by something, and their resistance to flames continued to increase. Remy only felt that the purple flames were becoming more and more difficult to burn. Then soon, he could clearly sense that these bugs were devouring his magic power and his purple flame step by step. It seemed that they were completely immune to the flame that had originally dominated and even used it as food. It was visible to the naked eye that the blood-red mist was increasing and the purple flame was decreasing. Even though Remy summoned up his magic power and continued to summon more purple flames. However, the blood-red mist did not stop, and the red bugs became more and more excited. They kept rushing towards the purple flame, sucking, transforming, and reproducing more of their kind. Voldemort watched the expansion of the blood abyss worms from a distance, with a faint smile on his face. Sure enough, magic power is the best food. I didn't expect that the magic power of these little wizards would be so delicious and better quality than that of the French wizards. With his mind turning, Voldemort began to order these blood kite worms to slow down, trying to squeeze out more magic power and more purple flames from these little wizards as much as possible. After all, this was his trump card to deal with Tom and Lockhart. No, I can't stand it anymore. At this moment, Remy could clearly feel the weakness in his body, and even his magic power was a little disobedient and wanted to resist. Wanda on the side seemed to feel Remy's weakness. The idea turned, wanting to replace Remy and take the lead to resist Voldemort. After all, if her talent is used to the extreme, I believe she should be able to stop Voldemort. However, when she conveyed her wishes, Ian directly refused. And he encouraged his magic power and shouted loudly to the surroundings. Professor Credence, it's time for you to take action. For him as the captain, the safety of everyone's life is the first priority. Now is not the time to show off. He will not risk the lives of his teammates to show off. Since he knows that Professor Credence is hiding around, it is time for him to take action. Even if Credence does not take action, then Ian will turn around and force him to take action. This is Ian's logic. As a captain, he should be responsible for the lives of his teammates. As Ian's voice rang around, at the same time, a mighty magic power spread rapidly around. Credence had to show up. At the same time, Voldemort set his sights on a certain location in the west. This guy is very good at hiding. If it weren't for the magic sweep just now, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to catch his trace. Yes, although I knew Credence might be following them on the road, Ian had never found his trace. Although he couldn't find it, Ian believed that Voldemort would be able to find it if he was given a chance. Then the next development would not be something Credence could control. Although the means were a bit despicable, they were very effective. Ian looked at Credence's emerging figure and raised the corners of his mouth. Seeing this, Voldemort waved his hand casually, and a large number of blood worms formed a blood-red mist and flew towards Credence. The blood mist has not evolved to its final form yet, and it still needs supplements. A lot of supplements. This food looks delicious, Voldemort thought silently in his heart, and couldn't help licking his lips. At this moment, Credence cursed in his heart and quickly waved the wand in his hand. A large amount of black mist continued to pour out as the wand was waved, rushing towards the blood-red mist. But soon, just like facing the purple flame just now, the black mist gained the upper hand, but the red mist began to resist, further swallowing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Feeling his magic power disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye, Credence's face became more and more ugly. This Voldemort is not easier to deal with than Grindelwald. So, Lockhart, if you don't take action, your students will be finished. Well, if Ian calls his name, He will call Lockhart's name. One ring after another. It's like a nesting doll. In the end, Kamar-Taj will bear everything. Credence contacted Lockhart before, just to face such a situation. Although it was mainly to deal with Grindelwald, Voldemort didn't know why he appeared, but it just happened to be useful. Credence's voice fell. The next moment, in the air, a figure wearing a 7-color wizard robe emerged. At the same time, the figure looked at the position behind Voldemort. The overwhelming pressure spread rapidly with a sound. Grindelwald, come out. Chapter 542 Grindelwald. Oh, fate. You are so magnificent, and yet so evil. Around the huge depression, purple flames formed a cage, encircling a large number of 8-eyed giant spiders. When the dark green poisonous fog entered it, the 8-eyed spiders inside roared and howled angrily. Standing in the air, Grindelwald silently watched everything in front of him. Watching the purple flames transform into a cage, unconsciously, the corners of his mouth curled up, as if he was recalling something in the past. However, he soon set his sights on the red-haired girl, who was casting a spell on the side. The silver-white pupils stared at Wanda's black eyes. Of course, there was also the giant dragon's eye obey on her shoulder. The power of destiny is gathering, illuminating your choices, and guiding your thoughts. Finally appeared in front of me. Any resistance on your part will only turn into further motivation. Everything. Destiny has given the final answer. Destiny, what a magnificent power, and how evil. Whoosh, 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 buzz, buzz, buzz. When the purple flames and the blood-red mist intertwined with each other, Grindelwald shifted his sight. His sight was on Voldemort and the blood gushing out of his body, the red mist and the blood abyss worm. It must be said that Voldemort is in the same echelon as him, and he is indeed quite capable. This bloody bug is really dangerous. I don't know how Voldemort controls it, but he is so comfortable with it. However, what surprised Grindelwald the most was the bloody fate is constantly gathering. Here, at this moment, it seems to be Voldemort's home court, and the world seems to be helping him. It seems to be celebrating what he has done. Why? Killing, although there is a chance to be favored by fate. But there is no doubt that only the enemies of fate will be treated like this. And they have the savior that fate loves. Why is it like this? Doubts emerged in his mind. Grindelwald stood in the air, quietly paying attention to the actions of Voldemort, Harry Potter, Wanda and others. Somewhat puzzled, he needed to get more information to get the answer he wanted. Professor Credence, it's time for you to take action. Ian's voice resounded around, and Grindelwald set his sights on the ground. Soon, a person wearing a black wizard robe also appeared in Grindelwald's sight. Old friend. Grindelwald looked at the familiar face and smiled faintly. The hiding method was indeed very powerful. Dumbledore and Voldemort could not find it, which was not surprising to him. However, who made this old friend's fate intertwined with his too closely? It can be said that since the youth, the other party's fate has collided with his own, intertwined with each other, and even entangled with each other. It is obviously not good for his friend's luck. He is sensing the flow of fate, and the other party is hiding under his nose. Every move is like observing the lines in the palm. At this moment, it is really easy to kill him. With this thought in mind, Grindelwald continued to observe the battle between his old friend Credence and Voldemort. The magic of Obscurus is indeed unique, but it is still the food of the bloodworm. That's right, even with his own magic, he is best at fiendish fire, but it is still difficult to completely stop these worms. It has to be said that Voldemort, who has been favored by fate, is really too tricky to deal with these extremely dangerous and unlimitedly adaptable bloodworms in front of him. Lockhart, if you don't do anything, your students will be finished. Credence shouted, and Grindelwald suddenly looked up and stared at the air not far away. He saw Lockhart, wearing a 7-color wizard robe. At the same time, Lockhart was smiling at him. Their eyes met, and the silver-white pupils and emerald green eyes looked at each other, and smiles appeared at the same time. It seemed that the two had sensed each other early. As Lockhart read out his name, Grindelwald appeared in front of everyone. At this moment, the black mist on the ground and the blood-red mist plus the purple flames intertwined. In the sky, Lockhart and Grindelwald, one wearing a colorful wizard robe and the other wearing a grey wizard robe, looked at each other. As the blood red mist gradually retracted, Credence also retracted the black mist transformed by his magic, and Remy also retracted his purple flame. The blood mist returned to Voldemort's body, and Grindelwald and Lockhart slowly landed on the ground. We meet again, Grindelwald. Lockhart looked at Grindelwald's silver-white pupils with interest. His thoughts turned, and the colorful dream power evolved into a light golden power of destiny, covering the other party's destiny. Yes, Lockhart, I didn't expect that we would meet here, Grindelwald said slowly in a steady tone. As he spoke, he looked around the environment of the Forbidden Forest, and said in a low voice with some emotion, "It would be great if Albus came again here." Then, Grindelwald said in an inquiring tone, "Lockhart, I'm really curious, what did you use to convince Albus? He is such a determined person, it's hard for me to imagine that he was persuaded not to participate and be a bystander." As for Grindelwald's question, Lockhart seemed to have not heard it and continued to fiddle with the ring in his hand. However, the conversation between the two made Voldemort, who was standing beside him, a little impatient. Ever since he knew that Lockhart was the biggest culprit behind the scenes, the killing intent in his heart could not be stopped, and the idea of revenge kept appearing in his heart all the time. Grindelwald, if you want to know the answer, it's very simple. Voldemort raised a finger and said word by word, "Catch Lockhart, I'll check his memory." At this point, Voldemort showed a cruel smile on his face. "No matter how much you say, it's better to fight. Seeing blood will make everything easier." As he said that, a large number of blood worms emerged from his body again, forming a blood red mist behind him. He was very contemptuous of the habit of talking before fighting. After talking so much, no useful information will be obtained, and in the end, they will still have to fight. Of course, he can talk, but others can't. Well, he, Voldemort, is so double-standard. After hearing this, Grindelwald frowned slightly, but looking at Lockhart's attitude, he also knew that it seemed impossible to get useful information from Lockhart by communication alone. So, with a flick of his right hand, the blue fiery flame fell on the ground like a drop of water. In an instant, the fiery flame grew wildly, spreading rapidly along the ground. He did not rush directly at anyone, but began to spread around, forming a huge blue circle of fire. The grass left inside the circle of fire turned yellow in a very short time, and then seemed to be unable to bear the scorching fiery flame and spontaneously burned. Soon, only a piece of yellow land was left in the huge circle of fiery flame. Lockhart, Credence, Voldemort, all of them were in this circle, as if this was a duel venue reserved for them. It should have been done long ago. Voldemort licked his lips and said bloodthirstily. At the same time, blood mist filled the air behind him, spinning and expanding rapidly like a storm. And Lockhart, with colorful light in his eyes, stretched his palm slightly forward. A large amount of colorful dream power gushed out. In a very short time, a colorful barrier stood in front of him. Wanda, Ian, Harry, Hermione and others ran behind Lockhart. As for Credence, he slowly walked to Lockhart's side, stretched out his wand, and the familiar black mist appeared again. Chapter 543 Taboo, the terrifying blood abyss worm. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The wind howled, and the huge blood-colored storm swept towards Lockhart and others. The colorful energy barrier shone with dazzling light. Wanda and others passed through the thick, glass-like colorful barrier, and looked at the blood-colored storm on the opposite side. Looking at the large amount of profits in the blood-colored storm, rotating at high speed, constantly flying towards their positions. Even though Wanda and Ian were full of confidence in their mentor, they still couldn't help but clench their fists, and their palms were sweating. In a flash, boom, the blood-colored storm and the colorful barrier collided with each other, making a huge roar. Sizzle, sizzle. Through the colorful barrier that looked like glass, Hermione clearly saw that the blood-colored blades like blades kept hitting the barrier, trying to break it. At the same time, the sizzling cutting sound made Ron, Hermione and others cover their ears. A large number of blood-colored blades frantically cut the barrier, and the sound was sharp and unpleasant. Even Lockhart frowned slightly. He waved his hand casually, and the colorful ripples flashed. The sizzling sound slowly decreased. At this moment, Voldemort saw that the bloodstorm seemed to be firmly blocked by the colorful barrier. He licked his lips, seeming a little impatient. The wand in his hand was like a baton, waving quickly and forcefully. A large number of blood abyss bugs once again condensed into blood abyss mist. The blood-colored mist quickly spread rapidly towards the colorful barrier. The original bloodstorm still did not reduce its offensive, continuing to hit, cut, and want to destroy everything in front of it. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Feeling a large number of tiny blood-colored bugs trying to devour the colorful dream power he condensed. This made Lockhart frown, because he clearly sensed that these bugs could actually devour the dream power. Even if there were few, it was not a good sign. Lockhart, these bloody bugs can devour energy and adapt quickly, so be careful. Creston on the side warned, injecting the bloody mist on the opposite side, with a deep fear in his eyes. He had transformed into Obscurus before, and these bugs could devour the magic power full of destruction and despair. It was simply the nemesis of wizards. After hearing Creston's words, Lockhart nodded slightly to show that he understood. Then, he raised the wand in his hand slightly, and drew an elegant arc in the air. In an instant, the colorful light flashed dazzlingly, and the bloody bugs, that were originally devouring the dream power on the surface of the colorful barrier. The next moment, the bloody mist on the surface became illusory, and the whole body became transparent. The original bloody mist had turned into a transparent bloody light. In the end, disappeared. It seemed as if it had never appeared. After seeing this, Voldemort on the opposite side had no expression on his face, but just waved his wand gently. The bloody mist reappeared and devoured the colorful barrier. For the blood abyss worms, you can kill me once or twice, but you can never kill me 10 or 20 times. Devour, adapt, evolve. This is their instinct and their talent. Come on, the more you kill, the more it devours, and the more it can adapt. All the blood abyss worms are a whole, and any changes will be synchronized. They are eternal and unique. A large number of blood abyss worms rushed in one after another, and even the blood-colored storm began to shrink, turning into a large number of blood-colored plants covering the colorful barrier. It seemed that all the blood abyss worms, as if they had been hungry for 800 years, devoured crazily, even if their bodies gradually became transparent and then were ground. But this still couldn't resist their madness. It was really delicious and full of temptation, just like a state banquet, like a full banquet of man and Han. Indistinctly, the sharp-eyed Lockhart seemed to see some blood abyss worms with colorful colors, but they quickly dissipated. At this time, Grindelwald, who was watching from the side, also showed a cautious look on his face. It was really terrifying. How did Voldemort come up with such a terrible thing? How many people did he kill? Through his talent, he could clearly sense the wailing and roaring of countless lives on the blood-colored mist. It can be said that without a large amount of killing, the blood-devouring worm cannot be created. At this moment, Lockhart felt the power of the dream, which began to shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye, and his face became a little ugly. Is the backlash of the world consciousness so strong? Such a violation of the rules can appear. Do you still have any shame? Cursing in his heart, Lockhart waved his wand continuously, and colorful lights passed through the air. At the same time, colorful mist began to emerge on the surface of the barrier, actively mixed into the surging blood-colored mist. The colorful mist and the blood-colored mist intertwined with each other. You have me, and I have you. Soon, the mist was surging, and it became more and more agitated. The blood-colored mist that impacted the barrier also began to become a little sparse, as if it was fighting against the colorful mist. If you zoom in and magnify the colorful mist several times, you can clearly see a large number of colorful bugs appearing continuously. Except for the difference in color, the rest are almost exactly the same as the blood abyss bugs. As soon as the weapons were born, they spontaneously found the nearest blood abyss bugs, collided with each other, and exchanged one life for another. Yes, the greatest effect of the power of dreams is simulation or creation. As long as you are willing to think, then he can create everything you imagine. Of course, if you want to have the corresponding functions, you must have a deep understanding. Otherwise, you can only make the surface exactly the same. In the face of the blood abyss bug, although Lockhart cannot be completely consistent, he can make a suicidal attack with the power of dreams. The colorful mist continued to emerge and intertwined with the blood mist. In just 10 seconds, the colorful mist and the blood mist seemed to be like brine and tofu, gradually disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, Lockhart clearly sensed that the difficulty of dissipating the power of dreams began to increase. The original 1 portion of dream power now requires 1.5, or even 2 or 3 portions to be completely consumed. This made Lockhart sigh. Sure enough, the world consciousness is always difficult to deal with, especially when the other party has an evil Spokesperson. This thing is simply evil to the extreme. Like Grindelwald, Lockhart clearly sensed the endless killing behind these bloodworms. Even with Lockhart's indifferent character, he couldn't help but secretly click his tongue. With his mind turning, Lockhart turned around, stared at Wanda behind him, and said calmly, "Wanda, next, I need your cooperation. Expel the world consciousness and create a new battlefield." Chapter 544, Expelling World Consciousness, Grindelwald's Strange Death. But, after hearing what her mentor Lockhart said, Wanda slowly walked forward to Lockhart's side. Her steps were a little slow, as if something heavy was pressing on her shoulders. But she was very determined. With every step she took, her red hair, including her eyebrows, gradually turned into colorful colors. It seemed that she was being transformed by some kind of power, or assimilated. Soon, her hair, eyebrows, and even her clothes gradually turned into the colorful colors of the power of dreams. Just like Lockhart. The only thing that didn't change was her bright red eyes. Not only did they not turn into a colorful character, they were even brighter than usual, blooming with a faint red light. Talent, probability control. No, long-term training, deliberate cultivation, and a large amount of resource supply. Now it should be called, fate is concluded. Both palms gently touched the colorful energy wall. In Wanda's eyes, it seemed as if time stopped and everything was silent. One by one, colorful silk threads intertwined and complicated. Just a glance, there are all kinds of changes. At this moment, Wanda felt as if she was in a chaos, with countless possibilities and choices constantly emerging. It was like a gorgeous and chaotic painting unfolding in front of him. He seemed to see countless futures, each of which was full of hope, and each of which was full of despair. She felt as if her brain was about to explode, with all kinds of information intertwined, unable to distinguish or choose. In the eyes of Ian, Hermione, and Harry behind her, Wanda's heartbeat quickened, her breathing became rapid, and her hands kept shaking, as if she had lost control. Even tears of blood flowed from her eyes. Breathe. 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 Wanda took deep breaths according to her previous training the next time, trying to calm herself down and make the right choice. A large number of pictures, a large number of choices, and a large number of possibilities rushed into her frantically, regardless of her ability to bear. A huge amount of despair poured into her heart, and she even had the idea of escaping. But she remained firm, waiting and adapting very firmly. After all, the fate that was to be concluded this time was not just a wizard, but a world. Even if it was just a possibility, the price to pay would not be small. I don't know how long it took, maybe 1 or 2 days, or 1 or 2 seconds. She saw a real favorable possibility. She stretched out her fingertips and touched it lightly. Ding. Fate began to close. Everything became a foregone conclusion. In an instant, the colorful mist that originally filled the surroundings turned into raindrops. Tick-tock. Tick-tock. The moist water vapor and the majestic raindrops kept washing. What were they washing? In the eyes of Grindelwald on the side, the bloody fate that was originally entangled with Voldemort seemed to be washed away by this heavy rain. Even the bloodworm began to wilt, as if it had lost its appetite and vitality. At the same time, for some reason, in this state, it was clearly some strange magic cast by Lockhart's side. He felt a kind of relief, as if he had broken free from his restraints. When he realized this, he had a vague guess in his heart, but he was not sure. At this moment, Lockhart had a smile on his face. The world consciousness was expelled. At least, at this moment, the nearby area is invisible and inaccessible, as if it is a lawless place. Because of his opposing position, Voldemort is entangled with a majestic blood-red force of destiny, even stronger than the former protagonist Harry Potter. Why would a villain be like this? Lockhart knew very well that the forbidden power like the blood abyss worm can devour everything and adapt without limit. It is said that it was created by Voldemort. Lockhart never believed it. If the world consciousness had not been involved, He could have eaten the wizard robe on his body now. In this state, it is not Voldemort who is fighting him, but Voldemort plus the world consciousness. The current Voldemort is not the original Dark Lord, the original villain. At this moment and here, he is the protagonist of the whole world. And what is the most powerful ability of the protagonist? It is not all kinds of golden fingers, all kinds of coincidences like fate. It is the kind of unreasonable explosive ability when facing desperate situations. This unreasonable explosive ability is combined with a bloodworm with no taboos. Damn, Lockhart felt his scalp tingling. So, while these bugs haven't fully adapted to the power of dreams, quickly expel the world consciousness. Even if it's just for a moment, it's enough for Lockhart to deal with the enemy in front of him. I have to say that Wanda's talent is useful. Fate is bound, even if there is only a 1 in a billion chance, as long as the convergence is successful, it will appear 100%. Expel the opponent in the opponent's world. Lockhart can't do it himself, and Wanda can't do it either. But with the same source of dream power, combined with Wanda's miraculous ability to converge fate, everything is done. The moment the world consciousness was successfully expelled, Lockhart smiled, and at the same time, he also took action. In an instant, as if taking hormones, a large number of colorful beams shot at Voldemort like a machine gun. Boom. 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 It took no more than a second for Voldemort to react. Even before the sound of the explosion appeared, he was blown to pieces, and his body was gone. Only huge pits and colorful flames remained on the ground, showing Lockhart's full strength. At the same time, raindrops fell on the blood-red mist. It seemed to be wrapped, and it seemed to be washed away. The blood-red mist gradually faded, and the bloodworm was gradually wiped out. Then, while the world consciousness was expelled, and had not returned, Lockhart set his sights on Grindelwald. In the battle just now, Grindelwald seemed to have done nothing, except marking a battlefield. He just watched quietly. Perhaps, the power displayed by Voldemort just now also surprised Grindelwald, and even shocked him. He is not dead yet, Grindelwald said. A few short words, not even saying who he was. But Lockhart understood that he was Voldemort. Really? Lockhart put on a puzzled expression, and then said with disdain, so what? I can kill him once, I can kill him a second time. Really? Lockhart. Grindelwald looked into Lockhart's eyes and said calmly, do you really have the confidence to defeat him? Yes, the word Grindelwald used was him. A title for the sacred and supreme. Now, Lockhart fell into silence, and did not give a positive answer. Tick-tock. Tick-tock. The colorful raindrops gradually became sparse, and the surrounding environment seemed to be returning to its original appearance. Indistinctly, the people present seemed to feel a kind and hostile force, constantly searching for something. As if knowing that there was not much time left, Grindelwald spoke in a hurried tone. However, it seemed that only Lockhart heard his voice, and Wanda, Harry, and others behind him did not change their faces. Lockhart, your enemy is actually him. On this point, I can only wish you good luck. The raindrops have completely stopped, and the surrounding environment seems to be returning to normal. After Grindelwald finished speaking, all the magic in his body rushed out crazily. Chaotic, disordered magic spread all around. But his figure turned into a light spot, and the majestic energy spread outward. Grindelwald was dead. He blew himself up. And the words he left behind were, Lockhart, I don't know if you are from our world, but there is no doubt that meditation is not from our world. Remember my words, we are not necessarily enemies. Chapter 545, Grindelwald's mysterious death and Voldemort's resurrection. But chaotic, disordered magic spread outward. Grindelwald's figure turned into a light spot and slowly disappeared. At this moment, Credence saw Grindelwald dissipate, as if he was committing suicide. His eyes were filled with doubt, as if he couldn't believe that Grindelwald died just like that, and he committed suicide. This was his lifelong enemy. No matter how powerful Lockhart was, even if he killed Voldemort with one blow, the other party would not commit suicide. However, watching all the magic in the other party's body spread disorderly, and even formed a magic storm at one point, Credence's eyes were confused. Reason told him that it was impossible, but in reality, it was clearly in his eyes. Grindelwald was dead, and he committed suicide. At this moment, Lockhart seemed to notice Credence's expression, patted his shoulder, and didn't say anything. However, he couldn't help but complain in his heart. Sure enough, it's not so easy to die when you really reach the top of the world. Voldemort can be resurrected through Horcruxes. Who can say that Grindelwald can't? This group of wizards had 8 million tricks in their minds. Even if they were ready to surround and kill him, they didn't forget to leave a backup plan for resurrection. At this moment, Lockhart obviously forgot the means of resurrection he left in the dream world. As for why Grindelwald committed suicide for no reason, Lockhart also had an answer in his mind. After all, if you want to attract investment, how can you get people to pay without taking some actions to show your appreciation? Look, how is Voldemort's condition? Grindelwald didn't even dare to say that he was Voldemort's opponent. Teacher, I feel someone is staring at me. Wanda closed her eyes with blood and tears and said uneasily, it seems that there is endless malice spying on me and surrounding me. After hearing Wanda's words, Lockhart walked in front of her and looked at Wanda's haggard, panicked, and helpless face. He sighed and gently wiped the blood and tears on the other's face. It seemed that he sensed a familiar breath and a familiar temperature. Wanda, who was originally uneasy, gradually calmed down. Go to sleep, Wanda. After a good sleep, everything will be back to normal. Lockhart's gentle comforting voice sounded, and Wanda's originally tense body began to relax gradually. Soon, her body softened and fell into a deep sleep. Seeing this, Lockhart waved his hand gently, and Wanda's figure gradually disappeared, returning to the safe dream world. Teacher, is Wanda okay? Ian took a step forward and couldn't help but speak. Remy and Vera on the side also looked at their mentor nervously. As companions who study, fight and play together, no matter who has a problem, they will be very worried. Don't worry, Wanda, I will take care of her. Nothing will happen, Lockhart said calmly. Lockhart's calm voice seemed to infect Ian, Remy and others. However, Lockhart also felt a sense of urgency in his heart. How can you expel the world consciousness without paying a price? You are in someone else's house and drive the host out. If it were you, would you be angry? Would you be angry? Would you retaliate? Obviously, in the Harry Potter world, as soon as Wanda appears, she will be hit hard by the world consciousness. All the malice will eventually come to her face. Especially Wanda herself comes from the Marvel world. Although there is a system to cover up the breath of the other world, Wanda is not him after all, and the system will not try so hard to hide it. If the world consciousness tries its best to identify, then Wanda's identity will be easily exposed. After all, even if you have an ID card, a house, an address, and even a fictitious trace of life, but as long as you try your best to identify, you can always find problems. And after being exposed, the series of reactions brought about will be difficult for Lockhart to estimate. From the dream of the world consciousness never knows how to hold back. If the system has not been hiding traces for him all the time. Otherwise, the world consciousness should be directly targeted at him, instead of strengthening Voldemort's power and locking him through Voldemort. Yes, when the system tries its best to help Lockhart hide his tracks, the world can't lock all traces of Lockhart at all. It's like a blind man. Even if he is right in front of him, he can't perceive it. As for the world consciousness, because of its huge size, it has no subjective consciousness and can only rely on instinct. Unable to perceive means unable to lock, and thus unable to attack directly. After all, it will not attack itself for no reason. Lockhart can only be eradicated indirectly. For example, Voldemort, who is hostile to Lockhart. Despite this, Lockhart closed his eyes, and blood-red warning messages kept flooding into his mind. Warning, warning, the world consciousness is searching for the host with all its strength. The system is shielding. After calculation, if the high-intensity search continues, it is expected that the host's location will be locked in 10 days. It is recommended to leave the Harry Potter world in advance. Yes. I could have stayed in Harry Potter for nearly 10 years, but now, at most 10 days, I must leave. Otherwise, the destruction of the dragons and elves from the overlords of each era will all fall on him alone. France, Basleton School of Magic. In the Grand Underground Palace, there was no figure, no sound, and darkness enveloped everything. Suddenly, The dim blood red lights lit up, and a strange atmosphere filled the surroundings, making people shudder. The next moment, a complex and mysterious magic circle appeared in the center of the underground palace. The rune in the middle flashed a scarlet light, like flowing blood. For some reason, just looking at it made me feel a little sick, as if I had experienced endless pain and torture. The magic circle kept running, and a vast amount of magic power kept flowing like blood. Gradually, a tiny blood abyss worm that could not even be seen with the naked eye began to emerge. Then, blood-colored light spots continued to emerge and expand. Soon, a blood-red mist emerged. As the blood-colored runes continued to flash, Voldemort's body began to condense from nothingness, and white bones and flesh emerged in the mist. However, soon, blood-colored runes began to appear on the surface of these white bones and flesh. Just looking at it made me feel dizzy. This process, ordinary people would only feel abnormal fear, as if they saw the birth and death of life. Time passed by minute, and the blood-red mist had spread to the entire palace. Voldemort's body was completely condensed, with a young face, black hair, and blood-red eyes. Power. Full of power. For some reason, Voldemort, who should have been weak after his resurrection, felt full of power, even stronger than before. Even the bloodworm seemed to have evolved. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The blood-colored mist began to condense in the middle, and continued to flow into Voldemort's body. Feeling the further enhanced power, Voldemort's face showed a hideous smile. Lockhart, as long as I don't die, you will die. But, I still have to deal with that puppet first. Chapter 546. History will punish us if we miss this opportunity. Alvermorny, the United States. A secret space. In the air, golden lines kept appearing, weaving, and interweaving. On the ground, a huge green plant appeared. Although its root system was very complicated, it was buried under the ground. Only a huge green round fruit was left on the ground. The golden lines kept interweaving in the air, and from time to time they were smeared into the green round fruit. Suddenly, as if stimulated by something, a large number of golden lines directly poured into the green fruit in the middle. Crack, crack, crack. Soon, accompanied by a cracking sound, a crack visible to the naked eye began to appear around the green fruit and gradually expanded. Boom. A light green gas gushed out as the fruit opened. Then, a figure in a black robe walked out of it. Sure enough, my guess was right. Feeling that the power of destiny in his body had expanded by nearly half, Grindelwald thought silently in his heart, and at the same time, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, as if he had found something fun. Snap. Grindelwald snapped his fingers with his right hand, and a pale golden flame suddenly rose from the air. Under Lockhart's control, the power of destiny was constantly injected into it, and at the same time, Lockhart's breath was simulated with magic power and injected into it. The pale golden fire of destiny seemed to have no reaction. Grindelwald seemed to feel a little strange. It shouldn't be, unless there was something wrong with his idea. The next moment, Grindelwald simulated the breath of Harry Potter, Ian, Remy, Vera, Wanda and others into it one by one. There seemed to be no problem injecting the breath of Harry, Ian and others into it, and the pale golden fire of destiny burned slowly. No hurry, no slow. However, when Grindelwald simulated Wanda's breath and put it into the fire of destiny, almost instantly, as if it was stimulated by something huge, the pale golden fire of destiny expanded rapidly. At the same time, in Grindelwald's perception, it seemed that some kind of huge consciousness descended on Alvermorny. The professors and young wizards of the school all felt a little depressed in their chests, but they couldn't find anything. At this moment, Grindelwald lowered his head slightly, to show respect for him, because that huge consciousness descended to his position. At the same time, Grindelwald waved the wand in his hand, and the power of destiny in his body and his own thoughts and ideas condensed into golden runes, which were constantly thrown into the hot fire of destiny. The rising fire of destiny seemed to be stimulated by something and expanded further, but it soon stopped. After a while, the huge consciousness seemed to get what it wanted, and left with satisfaction. The light golden fire of destiny returned to its original appearance. And sensing the large amount of power of destiny rewards that emerged from nowhere, and the ease with which it was controlled, Grindelwald smiled. and his smile became brighter and brighter. He is really so easy to deceive. United States Magical Congress. In the meeting room of the Congress, Dumbledore, wearing a dark red Wizengamot wizard robe, sat quietly in the front position on the left. Deputy Speaker Chenis sat in the main seat and said passionately, "We have received accurate information. Grindelwald died in England." Chenis' voice could not help but rise a little, very excited. Grindelwald actually planned to attack Hogwarts and Kamar-Taj. In the end, he failed to steal the chicken and lost the rice, and he was injured instead. When he said this, Chenis was very happy, and he wanted to pick up his wand to set off some fireworks to celebrate. "Are you sure, Speaker Chenis?" the Goblin Chief Nunas asked in surprise. "Of course, we have sufficient evidence for this matter." Without hesitation, Chenis waved his wand, and pictures appeared in the air. It was the picture of Voldemort and Grindelwald fighting Lockhart together. The news was released from Kamar-Taj and the Ministry of Magic, and Headmaster Dumbledore also confirmed the authenticity of the matter. "Right, Headmaster Dumbledore." Chenis set his sights on Dumbledore and asked with unstoppable joy. "Ahem." Dumbledore coughed and stood up, saying slowly, "Yes, I have confirmed this with Principal Lockhart of Kamar-Taj. Grindelwald is indeed dead." Hearing this, the Goblin Eldernass and a group of Goblin Wizards showed ecstatic smiles on their faces. However, things may not be as good as we imagined, Dumbledore added when he saw everyone's happy expressions. Hearing Dumbledore say this, many wizards and goblins showed doubts on their faces. For top wizards like Grindelwald, their means are so rich that we can't imagine. Death does not mean the end. Grindelwald may have prepared the corresponding resurrection ceremony. Dumbledore began slowly. Maybe he is resurrecting now, or he has already resurrected successfully. Hearing what Dumbledore said, the originally happy expressions froze. It seemed that everyone's face suddenly became heavy. Yes, you can be resurrected after death. This may be a fantasy for ordinary wizards, but it is so reasonable for top wizards like Grindelwald and Voldemort. Even Dumbledore himself has a corresponding resurrection ceremony. Some wizards and goblins looked at Dumbledore quietly, thinking silently in their hearts. In any case, this is a good thing. Chenis felt the changing atmosphere and interrupted. Even if Grindelwald can be resurrected, there will always be a period of weakness after resurrection. I believe this should be unavoidable. Am I right, Headmaster Dumbledore? Deputy Speaker Chenis asked Dumbledore. Indeed, any magic has a price, although I don't know what resources Grindelwald will need after resurrection. But based on past historical experience, there will always be a period of weakness after resurrection, but I don't know whether this period of weakness is long or short. Dumbledore explained slowly. That's right, I don't believe Grindelwald can recover so quickly. Chenis said immediately, this period of weakness of his is our best opportunity. At this point, Chenis couldn't help but wave his fist and said passionately, if Grindelwald is really dead, it would be even better. We can easily recapture Alvermorny, take back our magic congress, and completely kill the saints, or expel them from the American wizarding world. Even if Grindelwald is resurrected, I believe he is not our opponent during his weak period. Dear wizards and goblins, this is a turning point in the history of the American wizarding world. If we miss this opportunity, history will punish us. Now, I'm issuing an order as the acting speaker of the Magic Congress. Gather all forces, kill Grindelwald, capture the saints, and eliminate all resistance forces. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 547, Wizards and Fairies, a war is about to start. Goblin Palace. The Goblin King suddenly sat on his throne, silently watching the Goblin Eldernass who was constantly speaking below. My king, if the news this time is true, then it is indeed a good opportunity. If we miss this opportunity, when Grindelwald recovers, we will fall into the previous deadlock again. This time, Chenis promised us that, as long as we successfully kill Grindelwald and wipe out the saints, the goblins will continue to enjoy all their previous rights and interests in the American wizarding territory. And, after he becomes the speaker, the goblins will be allowed to obtain 10 seats. At this point, Nas's tone rose slightly, and he seemed to be very satisfied with this condition. Yes, the Magic Congress is different from the Ministry of Magic. They adopt the speaker member system. Becoming a member of the Congress is equivalent to having a real upper class status and having the qualifications to divide the cake of the American wizarding world. When the goblins have seats as members of the parliament, it is equivalent to the goblins will have a reasonable and legitimate channel to put forward their own ideas and obtain greater benefits. Compared with the previous development in secret, this condition is full of temptation. Damn. The Fairy King Turin tapped the handle of the throne with his right hand, listening to Nas's story silently. Suddenly, Nas, please repeat Chennis's request. Ah, okay, my king. Nas was stunned for a moment and quickly replied. My king, Chennis requires us to send at least 1,000 elite goblins to participate in the war. And, in order to ensure that Grindelwald can be completely wiped out this time, you must also take action. We must work together with Dumbledore to kill him, and at the same time, we must use the Wheel of Destiny to cut off any possibility of Grindelwald's resurrection. My king, there is one more thing. Nas concluded silently, although he didn't say it explicitly, his meaning was very clear. He hopes that, after we solve Grindelwald, we will mobilize all resources and push him into the position of speaker through this achievement. Only in this way can he give us the position of Goblin Counselor. If Grindelwald is really solved, the honor that Nashinus has obtained is enough for him to sit in the position of speaker. Of course, he also wants some treasures, the design drawings of magic guns. After Nas introduced the main conditions to Turin, the king of the goblins, he casually mentioned a few additional small conditions, and then stopped, and did not continue, silently waiting for the order of the Goblin King. After all, he is just an elder. Although I feel that this condition is very good, and now is indeed a very good time. But the final decision-making power lies in the hands of the king. He can only make some suggestions at most. If he really makes decisions for the Goblin King, he would not think he has lived long enough. Do you really think the Goblin King only rules the goblins through his personality? You must be kidding. No wizard can compare to the number of goblins that died at Turin's hands. Nas, are you sure that this question was proposed by Chennis himself? Has he been influenced by others? Also, how did Dumbledore respond to this proposal? The Goblin King suddenly asked. It was Chennis himself who proposed it. After the meeting, I discussed it with him. After asking him indirectly, I can basically confirm that it was his own idea. Including this sneak attack strategy, it especially emphasizes that you must bring the Disc of Destiny to cut off any possibility of Grindelwald's resurrection. Moreover, in his heart, he has long regarded this opportunity to eliminate Grindelwald as a key step in his becoming the president of the Magic Parliament. He is more eager than anyone else. As for Dumbledore, Nas carefully reviewed Dumbledore's changes in the meeting, shook his head silently and said, Dumbledore did not show any abnormality. In fact, he reminded everyone not to underestimate Grindelwald at the meeting. Other than that, he didn't say anything. Hearing this, the Goblin King Turin fell silent again. He was thinking about whether he should go out and join forces with Dumbledore to solve Grindelwald this time. It must be said that this time is indeed a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Grindelwald fell into a weak state, which is a good time to take action. Moreover, after he helped to eliminate Grindelwald, the goblins won seats as parliamentarians and officially stepped into the political stage of the wizarding world. As his thoughts turned, he secretly made up his mind. For the rise of the Goblin Clan, what's the big deal about taking a little risk? Besides, if something unexpected happens, Grindelwald can be resurrected, so why can't he? Okay, Nas, contact Headmaster Dumbledore for me. I want to meet with him to discuss the specific battle plan. Alvermorny, the headmaster's office. Grindelwald sat at his desk, his face ruddy, calmly looking at the elite Saint Holm who was in charge of the intelligence system in front of him. Leader, I just received news that there is movement in the Magic Congress, and it seems that they are going to launch a large-scale attack on Alvermorny. At this point, Holm raised his head slightly and glanced at the leader's expression. he said nervously. "Leader, the reason for this action is a rumor spread from the Magic Congress. They said that you died in the United States. Although you have been resurrected, you are still in a weak state. What is it? Now is the turning point in the history of the American wizarding world. It is the best opportunity. That's why there is such a big move." At this point, Holm paused and asked tentatively, "Look, what do we need to do next?" Holm couldn't blame him for thinking too much. He really couldn't see the leader in the past few days, and the Magic Congress was very sure about this information. If it is true, if it is not handled properly, then the Saints are really likely to face the crisis of extinction. "Holm, what do you think?" Grindelwald said with a smile. I. Hearing the tone of the leader, Holm broke out in a cold sweat on his back, and he hesitated, not knowing what to say. Seeing Holm's performance, Grindelwald felt bored, and suddenly reminded him of his confidant Rosier. If Rosier was there, he would not say these words at all. He would only provide real information, and then quietly wait for his orders. Finally, executed without compromise. Not like Holm now, hesitating and trying, but not having the courage. Oh. Thinking of the dead Rosier, Grindelwald sighed inwardly. He was suddenly disappointed and waved his hand, signaling Holm to leave. Seeing this, Holm left quickly, as if he had received a pardon. Just as he opened the door to the principal's office, a voice came from his ear. "Order all Saints to be on standby at any time, and prepare for war. This time, wipe out the last resistance of the Magic Congress and the goblins in one fell swoop." Chapter 548 Voldemort and the Fire of Hell. Germany, Durmstrang. Damn it. Why has it never been mentioned in history? Not only does it have a targeted effect on the soul, it can also transform a person's body, and lifespan is almost infinitely extended. Hellfire. What on earth is this? In the spacious research room, a dark red hellfire burned in the air. Tom Riddle walked around the hellfire, stopping and starting, and cursed, surprised, and even fearful words constantly appeared on his lips. Of course, the feather pen next to him automatically filtered out some irrelevant words, leaving behind the owner's true research experience on the hellfire. At this moment, the more Tom Riddle studied the hellfire, the more he felt a little tricky, even a little desperate. He understood the contract, and he had a research foundation before. Interruption, concealment, simulation, transfer and other ideas were enough for him to conduct various experiments, to find a way to get rid of Lockhart. But the hellfire in front of him was too difficult to deal with. It was simply parasitic in the depths of his soul. Any attempt to get away would only make the hellfire start burning. The feeling of putting the soul into a crusher, the burning feeling, as if every thought and every bit of energy in the soul were burned as new firewood. It was really unforgettable. When thinking of that, Tom Riddle couldn't help but tremble, and his face turned ugly. Damn Voldemort. Damn bastard. He was almost successful. As long as he got rid of Lockhart's control, then he would be free to fly. Even teaming up with Voldemort to deal with Lockhart would not be a problem. Well, if Tom Riddle really got out of control, I'm afraid the first thing he would do would be to swallow Voldemort. After swallowing Voldemort, he could better deal with Lockhart. The thought floated up, and suddenly, he seemed to have noticed something, and the hellfire deep in his soul began to shake, as if warning, or notifying some information. "What's wrong with the school recently?" Tom Riddle asked directly, summoning a house elf. Master. A little elf in tattered clothes frowned and kept thinking, as if recalling all the abnormal things. But in the end, he shook his head, and said to Tom Riddle, "Nothing is abnormal, Master." Seeing this, Tom Riddle waved his hand again, and drove away the house elf. Snap. With a light snap of his fingers, a dark red hellfire appeared in an instant. The pupils of his eyes appeared dark red, and the firelight shone on Tom Riddle's uncertain face. Is there danger? It must be said that, although this hellfire is difficult to get rid of, it is indeed useful. The hellfire warning just now could not be without reason. Thinking about it, Tom Riddle waved his wand casually. Whoosh! The black shadow flashed, and the phantom moved. The next moment, Tom Riddle appeared at the top of Durmstrang Castle. The sky was blue, but the cold wind blew, and at a glance, large areas of white appeared in front of him. Thick snow covered the castle, the grass, and the plain. Whoosh! 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 Dark red hellfire emerged and kept beating. Tom Riddle closed his eyes silently, blending his spirit into the hellfire, and using the power of the hellfire to sense the potential danger. But the hellfire was beating wildly, as if it sensed some danger coming, but it didn't know where it came from. After an unknown amount of time, Tom Riddle slowly opened his eyes and looked into the distance. Following his sight, he could vaguely see a trace of blood in the whiteness in the distance, quietly emerging. Bang! The magic wand was waved vigorously, and with a bang, a dark green firework exploded in the sky. The picture of a skull and a snake intertwined appeared in the sky. Death Eater mark. Then, as if sensing something, whoosh, 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 around Tom Riddle, on the top of the castle, and in various positions, dark shadows appeared. Death Eaters from pure blood families. Master. A Death Eater in a black robe asked hesitantly. He was a little curious about what the master had asked them to do, but before he finished speaking, Tom Riddle slowly raised his arm and pointed the tip of his wand at the direction where the red mist appeared in the distance. All the Death Eaters looked in the direction of the wand. A red mark appeared on the originally white ground. The mark was not big and even looked like a line from a distance. However, all the Death Eaters couldn't help swallowing their saliva, their eyes full of shock. Most of them were pure-blooded wizards, with keen intuition, and mastered advanced magic. Such a strong killing wave and the vast red mist came into view. They did not run away, but the master in front of them was supporting them. Let's go, let me see my old friend. Tom Riddle felt a familiar breath from it. A cold smile appeared on his face, and he said indifferently. As the voice fell, a black shadow flashed, and Tom Riddle's figure disappeared. The rest of the Death Eaters looked at each other, as if they knew who the old friend was. His face suddenly froze, but as the Death Eater waved his wand, he cast apparition, and followed Tom Riddle. The rest of the Death Eaters followed him one after another. At this time, hesitation is likely to mean betrayal, and the result of betrayal, here, can only be washed away by death. Outside the gate of Durmstrang. More than a month ago, the battlefield where Voldemort, Tom Riddle, and Grindelwald fought three parties still exists. On the ground, there are still potholes and holes, and the remaining hellfire and dark magic are enough to disperse the snow falling from the sky. Tom did not clean up here. It's not that he was too lazy to clean up, but he kept this battlefield as a reminder for himself. In this world, most people are not fools. Even if the preparations made before are sufficient, and even several plans are listed. However, when the interests of the other party are touched, when a person becomes suspicious, it is difficult to calculate. He suffered this loss before, thinking that Voldemort would compromise even if he knew. After all, Grindelwald, Lockhart, and Dumbledore are their enemies. He never thought that the other party would choose to overturn the table. If he didn't have the hellfire, he would have been swallowed by the other party long ago. Or, this is the real him. He will never sit still and wait for death in any state. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The cold wind whistled, the blood-red mist was getting closer and closer, and a strong murderous aura came from the front. Tom Riddle watched silently, and the lion figure behind him had a solemn expression. He stretched his palm forward slightly. The next moment, boom. The blazing hellfire rushed out, and the blood-red mist that swept over suddenly stopped. Chapter 549 The Battle of the Two Voldemorts. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The blood-red mist made a decisive and subtle buzzing sound. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The hot air waves of the hellfire blew forward. Two figures stood in front of the blood-red mist and the hellfire respectively. The two had almost the same appearance, and were so young, elegant, and delicate. The difference between the two was that one wore a blood-red wizard robe, with a bloody aura all over his body. The other also wore a red wizard robe, but the color was darker, just like the hellfire behind him. There was coldness in the heat. There was despair in the trial. I didn't expect you to recover so quickly, Tom Riddle said with emotion. Huh, there are so many things you can't think of, Voldemort replied coldly. In fact, if you are not so anxious, we will soon be teammates. Tom Riddle hinted, of course, it's not too late now. To be honest, he could clearly sense the threat of the blood-red mist behind the other party. Otherwise, the game would not be so difficult. If you can swallow it, try to swallow Voldemort directly. Maybe you can find an opportunity to break through the hellfire. However, when he felt that the blood-red mist behind Voldemort was composed of a large number of tiny red bugs. Especially these red bugs kept entering Voldemort's body. Even with Tom Reed's psychological quality, his eyebrows couldn't help but jump. What on earth did this guy do? At the same time, the hellfire began to burn, and he seemed to feel a certain breath of sin. This breath was so heavy and so evil. This was not just a crime, but a massacre. The number of deaths was tens of thousands, which was simply a heinous crime that could not be described in words. Affected by the breath of sin, the hellfire suddenly expanded. Tom Riddle's face became even uglier. Why did he want to get out of the hellfire so much? Not only because the other party was difficult to deal with. More importantly, this guy had an extremely special preference for eradicating darkness and judging fairness. Tom could not imagine that he, who was one of the top dark wizards on Earth, would one day treat dark wizards with the attitude of a righteous judge. This matter was so embarrassing. A complete black history. Thinking about it, feeling the call of the hellfire from the depths of his soul, Tom sighed helplessly. After all, this power did not truly belong to him, and he could not fully control it. Feeling the urging of the hellfire from the depths of his soul, Tom waved the wand in his hand. Following the call of the hellfire, he let go of the resistance in his heart. Whoosh! The dark red hellfire excitedly wrapped Tom's body. In a flash, a flaming skeleton with hellfire all over his body appeared in front of him. The skeleton's body was wearing a flame-colored wizard robe, and dark red patterns were engraved on the surface. "Sinful man, look into my eyes," a hoarse and heavy voice sounded. Tom Riddle's eyes, which were glowing with hellfire, stared at the eyes of Voldemort opposite him. At this moment, Voldemort seemed a little excited when he saw Tom's actions. When he came here, facing his former natural enemy, he naturally thought of a way. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In an instant, a harsh buzzing sound rang out. Voldemort opened his mouth slightly, and the next moment, blood-red mist emerged from his mouth, shooting like an arrow towards the flaming skeleton that Tom had transformed into. Whoosh! As the flaming skeleton swung its right fist, the hellfire suddenly expanded and attacked the blood-red mist. The battle between the two did not seem to be very lively, but both sides had already entered a white-hot stage. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The scorching hellfire burned the bloodworms, making a sizzling sound. It seemed that it could burn without any effort. If Tom Riddle had not been constantly controlling the blood-red mist to replenish it, I'm afraid that the hellfire would have burned those bloodworms to death. However, when Tom Riddle realized that the total amount of hellfire was constantly decreasing, as if it was being sucked, his brows began to frown tightly. Soon, the bloodworms that could be easily burned seemed to become more vital and more difficult to burn. When Tom first realized this, he began to be cautious. He seemed to know where the danger just now came from. It was not the huge number of the other party, but the terrifying adaptability of the other party. Thinking about it, the flaming skull looked up and stared at Voldemort opposite. Trample, 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 crack, 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 crack. Catch the thief first. Since the bloodworms seem to be difficult to kill all at once, first, the owner of the bloodworms will be solved, and everything will fall apart. Without opening his right hand, a flaming longsword was quietly grasped. He took a few steps forward and swung the longsword vigorously. A sharp sound of air rang out, and the longsword wrapped in hellfire slashed towards Voldemort. However, bang! In an instant, a blood-red arm was raised high and forcibly blocked the flaming longsword that was swinging down. Voldemort looked at everything in front of him indifferently. At the same time, the blood-red color began to spread from his right arm to his limbs. In a blink of an eye, a blood-red figure emerged. It contrasted with the flaming skeleton opposite. He wanted to resist the hellfire and resist his nemesis. Whoosh! Bang! 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 The flaming longsword swung, and wisps of hellfire burned with it. Voldemort was not to be outdone. He casually waved a large amount of blood-red mist to wrap the flaming skeleton. At the same time, he took the opportunity to dodge the slash of the flaming skeleton. If you can dodge, dodge. If you can't dodge, just take a knife. Even if most of the body was chopped off, as long as a new bloodworm replaced the dead one, it would be just a minor injury for Voldemort. As the bloodworm continued to devour the hellfire, the bloodworm became more and more adaptable to the hellfire. Soon, the flaming skeleton seemed to feel its own hellfire, and it was difficult to completely burn the bloodworms around it. This made Tom Riddle anxious. If he remained calm, the flaming longsword would continue to swing and slash. The sword chopped towards Voldemort's head, although it didn't seem to hurt the other party too much. But Tom still didn't stop. Because he was waiting, he was looking. Finally, a subtle soul wave emerged. The flaming skeleton that Tom Riddle had seen seemed to have seen something. Without hesitation, the longsword instantly turned into several sharp hell knives. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Following the soul wave just now, the flaming flying knife suddenly stabbed forward. The head, shoulders, limbs, the places where the soul wave roamed, were instantly pierced by the flaming flying knife. I saw the blood-red figure that Voldemort had transformed into was motionless. It seemed that he was completely imprisoned. This made Tom Riddle's face slightly happy. This guy, for some reason, has become so strong. But as long as I swallow him, he will eventually become my nutrient for becoming stronger. However, buzz, buzz, buzz. The blood-red mist behind Voldemort, as if stimulated by something, rushed towards Tom frantically. Chapter 550, Five-Finger Mountain, Dream Cage. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A subtle buzzing sound sounded, and it became sharper and sharper. The blood-red humanoid phantom began to shake, and at the same time, the fierce blades of hellfire inserted into various parts of the body became dim at a speed visible to the naked eye. Devour. Desire. Tom Riddle stood not far away, feeling the emotions coming from the hellfire. The number of hellfires was getting smaller and smaller, and they were all swallowed up. Tom Riddle also clearly felt the crazy desire of the blood abyss worm that was like a wild beast, and had no reason. Looking at the blood abyss mist opposite, Tom Riddle not only had no worries or fears, but a strange light flashed in his eyes. A crazy idea was born in his mind. He wanted to break free from Lockhart's restraints. But the hellfire could not be eliminated no matter what. But what he saw in front of him was this weird blood-colored little worm. But it could devour the hellfire without scruples. Although in the end, it still ended in death. But Tom clearly found that as the other party continued to adapt, it could definitely devour the hellfire completely. What is this equivalent to? The nemesis of hellfire appeared. And this gave Tom a chance to break free. God knows, he was almost going crazy these days. In order to get rid of the influence of hellfire, and the resources and materials consumed were countless. However, looking at Voldemort's eyes, that seemed to want to eat people, Tom knew that it might be impossible to get help from the other party. Even if the other party agreed, he might want to swallow him. This is not the other party's fault. If it were him, he would think so. After all, in this situation, whoever swallowed who would benefit greatly. Snap, snap, snap. The snapping sound rang out, and in just 1 or 2 seconds, Voldemort had already broken free from the restraints. Tom, what do you want to do? Voldemort didn't believe that there was no reason why Tom didn't attack him just now. Indistinctly, he seemed to feel that something good was going to happen, but it didn't seem to be very good. Tap, tap, tap. Tom didn't reply, but stepped forward directly, raised a flaming whip in his right hand, and swung it with the wind. Bang! The long whip hit the blood-red body, and with a bang, it went straight through. Although a little surprised, he did not hesitate, swung his left claw wrapped in hellfire, and grabbed the opponent's heart fiercely. Whoosh, whoosh. The flames expanded highly, as if they were aroused by some kind of fuel. However, the left claw still passed through the blood-red figure, and he did not make any movements, even though the hellfire burned. No, he smiled. Voldemort looked at Tom Riddle opposite him, revealing a hideous and cruel smile. Buzz. When Tom grabbed Voldemort, buzzing sounds were heard everywhere, and the blood-red mist around him began to spread along this arm to Tom's limbs. Tom seemed to be ready to get rid of it, but he felt a fierce force holding him tightly. Whoosh. The thought turned, and the hellfire suddenly expanded, burning these blood-red arms and mist. However, it seemed that it had already adapted to it. The hellfire that could originally burn the blood abyss worm back to ashes instantly now seemed to be somewhat powerless. After burning for a while, a faint smell of burning came into his mouth. This was the smell of a corpse. What surprised Voldemort was that Tom did not seem to resist. No, he seemed to be resisting, but not with all his heart. He seemed to be waiting for something. This made Voldemort feel vaguely uneasy. The scorching hellfire was burning. The blood-red blood abyss worm was devouring him. He was adapting to this strange flame. The flame that was like heaven and earth to him seemed to be just a flame at this moment. It was a little hot, but it didn't seem to be fatal. Feeling the hellfire inside his body begin to decay, Tom's eyes flashed. Without hesitation, he further stimulated the hellfire, and the hellfire released its last strength. He did not have any defense, and gave his life to the hellfire. He let the hellfire protect him. This was a gamble with his life. At the same time, he was also gambling on his own path to freedom. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, Voldemort was somewhat confused. Tom seemed to be resisting, but not so hard. Was he seeking death? No, he was definitely not such a person. Even if there was only a glimmer of hope, he would stubbornly survive. Voldemort thought silently in his heart. However, he did not hesitate in his actions. He controlled the blood abyss worm and continued to devour the hellfire on the other party. As long as the hellfire was swallowed, Tom would be like a lobster with its shell peeled. He could enjoy the most delicious shrimp meat. Yes, he wanted to swallow Tom, just like Tom wanted to swallow him. The two were originally of the same origin. As long as Voldemort swallowed Tom, he could not only increase his strength, but he would also have a chance to control the hellfire controlled by the other party. How could Voldemort miss such a good thing? Buzz, buzz, buzz. The sharp buzzing sound continued to sound, causing the Death Eaters behind him to cover their ears and try to stop such noise. However, these seemed to be no match for the fear in their hearts. In their eyes, the master who was invincible seemed to be caught and bound by the blood-red figure. The hellfire that was rising on his body also became a little dim. Even the clear white bones could be seen vaguely. How could they not feel fear? Voldemort on the opposite side obviously became a madman. They could clearly sense that the blood-red mist behind him contained tens of thousands of killings. That was an innumerable number. Working under such a person, whether they could keep their lives was a question. Why did they leave Voldemort and choose Tom before? Wasn't it because Voldemort's state was a little unstable? Now the state is even more unstable. How can they not worry about it? Just as they were looking at the battlefield nervously, suddenly, the pupils of the Death Eater shrank. They saw a slightly thin and colorful arm suddenly appeared from the sky and grabbed Tom Riddle. Pull him out of the bondage of the blood-red mist. In the colorful arms, a skeleton was gently held, and the skeleton was covered with strands of hellfire. Tom Riddle's heart changed at this moment, and a feeling of regret suddenly emerged, but he forced himself to suppress it. It was such a pity. He had almost used up all the hellfire. As long as he used it up, he could start the first step of breaking free from the bondage. However, Lockhart's rescue made him give up this idea, and he didn't even dare to think about it. He knew the other party's level of divine mind absorption, and he had even been an experimental subject before. Therefore, he needed to suppress any thoughts of wanting to break free in his heart to ensure that he would not be spied on. However, it was really a pity. It was such a pity. He was just one step away from leaving Lockhart and enjoying true freedom. At this moment, Voldemort returned to his original body, staring at the colorful figure opposite with an ugly face. Lockhart. Voldemort gritted his teeth and read out the name. It can be said that he has been played by Lockhart. If he hadn't discovered it in time and turned the table over directly, I'm afraid he would have become a puppet controlled by the other party. And after breaking away, he also died in the hands of the other party once. If he didn't have a resurrection ceremony, he would have really died long ago. At this moment, Lockhart waved his wand gently. Tom Riddle slowly fell beside him, and his colorful arms turned into light spots and disappeared in an instant. Voldemort, you recover so fast, Lockhart kept saying. In the dark, the colorful light flowed in his eyes, and Lockhart was constantly searching for Voldemort's fate and the medium of his resurrection. He now has limited time, and under the crazy search of the world consciousness, he can only choose to leave temporarily. But before leaving, some disasters must be solved. The first one to bear the brunt is this Voldemort. This guy's really crazy, and has become a puppet of the world consciousness without knowing it. Now he only wants to seek revenge on himself and Kamar-Taj. And it is difficult to achieve the effect of returning in seconds when he leaves this time. Even He didn't know how long it would take for him to come to Harry Potter's world again. There was no way. The system specifically emphasized it. In order to avoid the fate search and cause and effect exploration of the world consciousness, it is necessary to completely cut off the connection with the world and establish a new connection after the storm. In this way, time will fall into chaos again. It is very likely that the Marvel world will last for 1 year and the Harry Potter world will last for 100 years. It is also possible that the Marvel world will last for 100 years and the Harry Potter world will only last for 1 year. Time is chaotic, especially without an anchor, and Lockhart was helpless about this. There was no way. The other party's size was too big. Although it was not as big as the Marvel world, it was a world after all. And it was an extraordinary world. I don't know how many extraordinary races have fallen into destruction and then risen generation after generation. Its accumulation is huge, at least in Lockhart's eyes. And now, the most important thing is to solve the scourge of Voldemort first. The colorful light flashed in his eyes, and a thread related to the fate of Voldemort came into view. It seems difficult to find the connection medium that he wants to resurrect. Voldemort on the other side looked at Lockhart without any action, but he felt a sense of being watched. Is there any use for inference? Without hesitation, Voldemort angrily ordered all the bloodworms to attack Lockhart. Well, now Voldemort will explode with one poke. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The blood red mist swept over, and at the same time, part of the blood red mist also poured into Voldemort's body. Voldemort, who was covered in blood red, emerged again and walked directly towards Lockhart. Step, step, step. The blood red figure, with every step he took, would make a clear sound mixed with the buzzing sound of the bloodworms. Lockhart raised his wand expressionlessly and pointed it forward gently. But a large number of colorful ice cones appeared on his back in an instant. The cold air was pressing, and at the same time, the tip was faintly shining with colorful light. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Without hesitation, he pointed his wand forward, and a large number of colorful ice cones shot towards Voldemort on the opposite side like bullets. However, as Voldemort stretched out his wand and turned it slightly a few times, the blood red mist turned into a storm, engulfing all the ice cones. He felt that the bloodworm had eaten up all the magic power of the colorful ice cones. Voldemort showed a smug smile on his face, looking at Lockhart's unchanged expression. He seemed to want to find a trace of panic in Lockhart's expression. Lockhart, how about I leave first and not disturb your battle? Seeing the battle scene just now, Tom Riddle's eyebrows jumped, and he said in a low voice. Lockhart lowered his head slightly, looking at their eyes with a smile. Seeing Tom's heart panting, he seemed to be worried that his inner thoughts would be caught. No, today, I will send Voldemort to repent to eternal death. Lockhart said silently, without any intention of letting go of Tom Riddle. How could he not know what this guy was thinking? This guy is the Dark Lord. No matter how much he tries to be submissive, he is still the Dark Lord. Lockhart has never underestimated the other party. The reason why he arrived just now was because the fire of hell sent out a warning. Lockhart did not believe that the information that was about to dissipate had no reason. Okay, Lockhart. Tom Riddle said in a deep voice, if you need anything, just ask. I will definitely help if I can. In response, Lockhart nodded without denying and said nothing. It seemed that a long time had passed, but it seemed that only less than 10 seconds had passed. The blood red mist turned into a storm, engulfing all the ice cones and extracting all the magic inside. Feeling that the bloodworm had adapted to Lockhart's dream power again, Voldemort smiled a little and showed a hideous smile to Lockhart. Then, boom, boom, boom. In an instant, countless colorful beams of light suddenly appeared and shot towards Voldemort. Looking at the familiar scene in front of him, Voldemort's face froze and became a little ugly. The breath of death surrounded his heart. He had died because of this kind of attack before. Seeing this attack again, almost instantly, Voldemort suddenly jumped back, and at the same time, he closed his palms. The blood red mist seemed to receive some order and hit the colorful beams crazily, wrapping the colorful beams. The colorful beams successfully penetrated the blood red mist and shot forward. However, at this time, Voldemort had already leaped far away. At this moment, Lockhart was not angry at all. He silently stretched out his palm and pressed down gently. Boom. A huge wave of air suddenly pressed down from the sky. A huge colorful palm suddenly appeared and pressed towards Voldemort fiercely, covering the blood-red mist. Boom. A deafening sound emerged, and Voldemort seemed to be pressed to the ground by the air pressure just now, unable to move. Even with the blood-red mist back and forth to support, it was still useless. When the colorful palm connected with the ground, at the same time, the palm turned into a mountain, and a large number of colorful runes emerged. Voldemort was suppressed on the mountain. On the surface of the mountain, Lockhart left a line of words with evil taste. Five-Finger Mountain. Dream Cage. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.